Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League. We are coming at you with the quarterfinals. We have finally made it to the playoffs. We have narrowed our 16 teams down to 8. And we are going to kick it off tonight with a banger matchup between Oakland Esports and the Akuma Katanas. My name is Gordo. I am joined tonight, as always, by Nyarko. Nyarko, we made it, man. We're here. We're here for playoffs. We're getting into those best of fives. I'm excited.
I'm excited too, Gordo, and these are two teams that I think we've talked about a lot throughout the regular season here. Akuma Katanas has been tearing up the competition, and Oakland Esports has had some fantastic upsets under their belt. We're moving into ban phase right now, so let us not tarry any longer. Let's see what's coming out here. Looks like so far it's going to be a Leona Aurelia ban coming out from the side of Oakland Esports, who will be taking blue for this game. Akuma Katanas just going to ban away some of these ever-present meta ADCs that have kind of defined this season.
Yeah, definitely something that we're expecting to see here. Akuma Katana's coming in as our second seed overall. Oakland coming in as seed number 6. Seeding is not entirely what determines the bracket for play-in, or for playoffs, rather. We do have a whole kind of bracket selection method that was streamed last week. Always fun to get to check out here. And so Akuma, they chose this matchup. They chose to play against Oakland. These guys both came from the same group. Akuma did win 2-0 when these teams met back in week 4. So they feel very good about their chances in this matchup. Oakland, of course, they don't really get a lot of say in the matchup here, having made their way in through the play-ins bracket. Had a nice win over Rise back in week 1 of play-ins to secure themselves this spot. Now we're going to have another tough matchup here in the Akuma Katanas, and they're going to lead it off with a Lucian lock-in.
Ooh, this is quite interesting. We haven't really been seeing a whole lot of Lucian being played throughout the AVL, and it's not someone that I think either team has really busted out so far here. We see Extorted and Mr. Nefarious both lock in mostly those Jinx, quite a few MF comfort picks as well, which I guess explains what Akuma Katanas are currently hovering, but maybe this is something like Lucian Nami or the like. I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, I'm not either. Mr. Nefarious has not really busted out the Lucian, nor have either of the solo laners, so this is going to be a new pick that they've clearly prepped for this matchup up against Akuma. They are going to default Extorted towards that Misfortune. This is his most played, has been loving. The Misfortune Leona bot lane especially is one that Extorted and Soli have busted out a whole bunch. The Leona has already been banned away, so that duo is going to be off the table. They are instead going to look towards this Diana for Doubtful in the jungle, and he is going to lock it on in.
Diana is also someone that we aren't really seeing a whole lot of come through for Doubtful in the regular season. So definitely a little bit of a mix-up here in this first draft. I think that people are not only feeling out the comfort picks for both teams, but they're also just looking to see how they're able to kind of get a jump in order to start kind of prematurely countering some of the big comfort picks for a lot of these players. Wizek is standing in for Mushin today in the jungle role for Oakland Esports, and it looks like they're going to be receiving the Udyr in turn. Diana obviously not nearly as beefy and has to make some plays early, but that power spike level 6 definitely assists in their ability to engage into team fights and cause a lot of discord. So we'll see what goes along with this Diana to help synergize Akuma Katana's build and lanes. Udyr and Set will round out Oakland Esports' selection here. I really like the choice of the Set, even though it is into an unknown matchup top side of the map. This is a champion that can really just cheese a lot of fantastic ganks, and especially against a squishier jungler, you can often confidently 2v1, and because of that fact, as long as you get ahead early in the lane, you're able to play quite confidently into the Akuma Katanas and just push however so you desire. Hopefully that'll allow for more flexibility across the map in turn. And ooh, there's a Yasuo.
Yeah, Klexo going for the Yasuo to pair on up with the Diana. I already liked the Diana coming into the jungle for Doubtful as a great pairing with that Misfortune. Lets you group people up for the bullet time more effectively. And now with the addition of the Yasuo for that mid-jungle combo, feels really good for the team fight capabilities of the Akuma Katanas to just try to force these engages and get these big wombo combo team fights off. They're going to have their support pool a little bit further pinched, but they already lost their favorite in the Leona, and if you're going to default back to other engaged supports, the Nautilus going to get banned away. But there's other options that Soli can go for here. The Alistair comes to mind. The Thresh still going to be available. He's busted out the Rel as well, which feels like it would be even further into this big AoE identity that Akuma have drafted for themselves. Might be a little bit tough of a laning phase, though, up against this Lucian. We'll see if they instead decide they'd rather blind the top lane, and even then it would only be semi-blind, because they have the set locked in and can assume it's going to be going top. But they're just going to lock in this Alistair, so still going to be the Wombo combo teamfight capabilities, going to be a little bit safer blind in lane than the Rel would be. I like this lock-in here, and now they save themselves counter pick for No Flame top lane in the top lane.
Yeah, I agree. I really like the choice of the Alistar. It's a very stable pick, and even though it's relatively weak in that first few sets of levels, that allows for a lot of poke to come down from champions like the Karma that is currently being hovered for Bello and the Lucian, you are able to sustain. You have that E heal in order to just make sure that you remain stable. And in turn, though, Bello is going to grab their favorite champion here. This is Karma, the one that they've been playing the most here in the AVL. And usually we see it paired up with that Ezreal for the side of Mr. Nefarious, but I guess we'll see how this pivot functions. You're kind of moving from one of the more passive ADCs to one of those active and aggressive ones early on here. So hopefully Bello will be able to adapt. And there is the Akali coming down as the last selection.
Akali going to be the lock-in for Keelan here to play up against this Yasuo. Feels like a good opportunity for the Akali. This is a matchup that isn't going to bully it too heavily. But now with the counter pick in top lane, really excited to see what No Flame is going to go for here. He's been a big fan of the Gragas all season long, and this has not been banned away. But instead, he's just going to go for this Gnar here. Knows that it's going to be a solid matchup up against the set. Should end up winning out that lane. We'll be able to get plenty of hyper procs up against the melee champion. It will be quick enough to avoid those phase breakers from coming on in, and will also serve this big AoE 5v5 team fight identity that the Akuma Katanas have drafted for themselves here. They don't see a need to go for anything too fancy. You could argue Yasuo Diana's a little on the fancier side, but as far as a game plan goes, they're going to run at people. They're going to try to AoE down as many members as they can, and they're going to trust that that's going to carry them through. Really like the strategy that they've decided to go for here for game number 1.
Yeah, Klexo is going to have the world of the time, basically just jumping around and making sure that they're able to get effective ults off, given the fact they have so many opportunities to jump off of knockups. Meanwhile, on the side of Oakland Esports, they similarly have some really nice synergies. That combo of the Karma and the Udyr is something that we've seen a lot here in the AVL. It just kind of speed boosts this champion, and given the fact that you're able to so efficiently and easily power farm up, you could become a real threat in the late game and a real means of shutting down some of these more active champions that come through for the Akuma Katanas. It'll just be up to how Wizek is going to synergize with the rest of the team. This is once again another substitute coming through for Oakland in playoffs, which, you know, is not typically the most preferable of circumstances, but I think that they are still going to be relatively confident with how they want to play this one out.
Yeah, Wizek going to be coming in, subbing in for the second time now for Oakland. They did sub in last week. They actually ended up having to put Mushin in the top lane. This time around, It's John will be here playing top. Mushin is the one who's missing, and so it will just only be that substitute in the jungle. An unfortunate situation for Oakland, but they were able to play it out last week, so at least they've had some experience with Wizek in the roster. Didn't end well for them. They did get 2-0'd by USC, but USC, of course, is coming in as our highest seed in the entire playoffs, so definitely no shame in dropping a game over there. But then again, you are playing against the second highest seed in the form of the Akuma Katanas, so it's definitely not going to be any easier of a matchup to play against here.
Yeah, for sure. One big mix-up right here that's coming through in the client draft phase, Gordo, is the fact that we're getting It's John on Akali and Keelan, in fact, on that set into the mid. I kind of agreed with your earlier assessment that Akali just has a pretty soft matchup into the Yasuo typically. It's a lane where neither player is really able to get a ton of kill pressure down unless you make some big overextensions or misplays or the jungler interferes. But Set's a little bit more confrontational of a champion. Maybe they're just looking to shut down this Yasuo early, but I think it's a rather skill-checking matchup on either side. So Keelan must be relatively confident with how this is going to play out.
Yeah, I do see the reason for the swap, but I actually do kind of like it. The if both players are comfortable on the champions, of course. The set is a little bit of a better matchup into the Yasuo, as you were alluding to there. Feels like it's going to be able to bully it a little bit more early on when it's a little bit at its weakest, and is also going to be tankier, so it's something that, you know, maybe has a little bit of a better chance of withstanding that Diana Yasuo combo, where both ultimates get on you, and it's pretty hard to avoid on something squishier like the Akali. I think the Akali also does better than this set up against the Gnar. Has a little bit more effective range, has a little bit more mobility, isn't just going to be getting slammed by hyperprocs all day long. You know, she can throw out those shurikens to farm, she can go into the smoke screen to hide away when she needs to. So all in all, I think it's a good swap for Oakland Esports. I do still think, though, this team composition really going to want to get off the board early on and going to want to try to snowball. That Lucian really contributing to that. It's going to be very tough to play with how low effective range they have over on the side of OU. Yeah, they have the Karma for the speed up to try to get Ujir and Set on in there, but you know, it's tough to run into this roster of Akuma. They have this Alistar who's going to be interrupting everybody, and they have so much wombo combo potential and power if you're actually walking into them that it feels like you're going to want to play the side lanes as much as possible. We'll see if the Akali is going to be the champ to really be able to do that or not.
Yeah, for sure. I think that bot lane is actually going to be a real focal point of interest for me in this game, Gordo. And that's just simply due to the fact that Soli's going to have to walk quite the tightrope in order to ensure that they aren't getting heavily poked down by Bello, but that they're always positioning to remain a threat and also remain a source of peel here, as you were talking about. Udyr or Set roaming down into this area, getting sped up by that Karma, can really be a solid source of engage against a champion that's as immobile as Misfortune is. So Alistar is going to have a lot riding on their plate. They just can't get low in that lane, and in turn, any kills bot side basically secures a pretty solid death ball moving up through river to grab stuff like that dragon, and it might also free up the Karma to go roaming, maybe pick up the Rift Herald later on. So there's a lot to watch out for. That is a for sure here. Any more thoughts on how this game is going to go for, or any lanes that you're particularly interested in?
It feels like you can't not look at the mid lane here with the Diana Yasuo combo. You know, it feels like you're so well set up to go in for ganks here. I like the decision to move the Set here to try to play a little bit more defensively around that and potentially have the chance to survive the all-in. That is, of course, though, assuming that you can survive the all-in. You know, if Kaelan's just a little bit too far up. I don't think the innate tankiness of the Set and the shield that you get from that Haymaker is really going to be enough if Yasuo and Diana are both on top of you, both getting the full combo off and really bursting you on down. He's, of course, hoping that it will end up working out, that he will be able to survive those kinds of all-ins. But, you know, you draft this Diana Yasuo because up against almost any laner, it's going to be able to pick up those kills, and it's going to be able to do so very reliably. And they can also move that pick potential elsewhere, right? They can try to go towards top lane and punish the Akali. They can try to go towards bot lane and set up a good gank onto the Lucian and the Karma, who are both going to be pretty squishy and vulnerable. So they got a whole boatload of options for what they can do with this mid-jungle duo, either roaming around or attacking the mid lane. And I'm going to be really looking at what Doubtful and Klexo are going to be able to accomplish there. We're going to throw it to a quick break while we get loaded onto the Rift for game number 1, but don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back as the Akuma Katanas and Oakland Esports take to the Rift for the first time tonight. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League quarterfinals. We got Oakland Esports on the blue side, taking on Akuma Katanas on the red for the first time tonight. Akuma Katanas, of course, had their selection of opponents during the bracket selection phase, and did take themselves Oakland Esports there. They were the second ones to choose overall, and felt like this was going to be a good matchup for them, as we're going to enter into a little bit of a pause, get a little bit more time to set the stage for this matchup. You know, these guys were in the same group. Akuma Katanas had a nice 2-0 performance back in week 4 when they played each other. And I guess that was enough of a sample size for Akuma to decide that these are the opponents that they wanted to face here. We'll see if that ends up paying off for them over the course of tonight's series.
Yeah, that is kind of the dynamic you see in a lot of these leagues that decide to go for this bracket selection format, where you have high-ranking teams in multiple divisions just kind of choosing people that are within their group that they already have experience against, which makes sense to me at the end of the day, Gordo. It's nice to, even with a small sample size of 1 or 2 games, get a feel for your opponent and their strategies from earlier on. You will always have VODs to review, but there's nothing like getting onto the Rift and pounding some face as a means by which to gauge your opponents here. But overall, how are you feeling? You hunkered down, you're ready for this 5-game series or potential 5-game series?
Yeah, I am. I've started off best of 5 season already. I cast Risen Divine League winners bracket finals last week. Gotten all the way to 5 games, so my body is ready. I've conditioned myself a little bit for going the full distance. This would be a little early to start ending up all the way at 5 games. I think surely the Akuma Katanas don't feel like that's how long it's going to go. But if that does happen, I am emotionally prepared for it here in Yarko, and hopefully we get to experience a 5-game series somewhere over the course of the next couple of weeks on stream, wherever that does end up happening. But I'm excited to watch these players take the Rift in particular, though, because it's getting to be all-pro season. I've been doing some research on games that have already been played, looking at Duan's stats site, looking at VODs where I can, looking at drafts to try to make some decisions about who you're going to vote for. Reminder, those votes are still open on the Discord for anybody who wants to partake. You will be able to vote for your regular season all-star ballots up until the semifinals, I believe. And, a name that comes up when we're talking about players who are going to be up at the top of those votes, candidates to be in the all-star team, Doubtful and Klexo are names that definitely have to come on up there. These guys have been so dominant as a mid-jungle duo, Doubtful in particular. He's just number 1 in like every stat you can think of for junglers. CSD, damage percent, gold percent, damage per gold, everything for junglers in the playoffs. Doubtful is at the top of every single one. And it's led this team to having this fantastic 13-4 regular season and set themselves up to be this huge, powerful number 2 seed. As the pause is going to end here, he's going to be a player that I'm really looking at this series to kind of continue to be dominant and to lead his team through the rest of this bracket.
Yeah, and we haven't seen Doubtful on much Diana, but compared to a lot of the champions that they played throughout the regular season, Gordo, I honestly feel that this is even more oriented towards Doubtful's carry playstyle. They're going to be able to output a lot of damage and be a consistent threat across the Rift as long as they're able to get a stable early game. The pause will unfortunately return, but there's still a lot of stage setting to do. That is for sure. Looking through these runes that we see picked up for both sides, everything's looking basically standard, but one thing I want to point out here is that Soli is going to be going for Glacial Augment as their keystone, and I've been kind of cooling off on this rune, especially on champions like Alistar into poke lanes, where you really need the sustain and the tankiness in order to just work your way in and get to a point in the game where you're able to actually get a knock up and engage started. I feel that, yes, of course, you are able to redouble your efforts and just be better at securing kills once you have an engage going with Glacial Augment, but oftentimes what I see is that champions just kind of get mowed down too quickly, too early. But Soli is obviously someone who's very confident in their skills, and they've been playing a lot of Glacial Leona as well, so perhaps they're just used to this playstyle.
Yeah, and the Leona, it really ends up working for as well as, she has all of those additional tank stats on the Eclipse, on the W. So it's a basic ability, it's always available, whereas the Alistair usually has to pop that Unbreakable Will. That's on a lot larger of a cooldown, and is also, a tool you want to be able to use elsewhere as well. It's also a cleanse, it's also It's an AD boost for a little bit. Not that anybody really uses it for that purpose, but it's less readily available than the Eclipse, and I think that ends up really making a little bit of a difference there for what you're trying to get done and how readily available that additional tankiness is. Getting the damage reduction to your rest of your teammates is certainly super valuable, but I have definitely seen a little bit of what you're talking about there, especially with LCS playoffs starting to go on, where the Alistairs with the Glacial Augment, they just end up not really being tanky enough to get the job done. I do feel, though, like this is a composition, though, where once you get the Alistair in, once you've started that engage, it's never going to be alone. They're never going to be far away from the rest of the team. The Diana, the Yasuo, they're going to be diving in right alongside that Alistair in ideal scenarios. You're going to use that Pulverize to set up for the Last Breath. You're going to use it to set on up for the Moonfall. You're going to use it to set up for the Gnar. And that means, the fight is going to have started and probably have its outcome determined right away once the Alistair goes in, right? You're going to throw all your damage on top of it, and either you kill them or you lose the fight. And more often than not, you're probably going to kill them.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think that because of that fact, Sully can just kind of die earlier on into a fight than usual. If anything, the ice that you'll leave behind will be more valuable than your continued presence there within team fights to a degree, and hopefully Klexo, Doubtful, Extorted, and NoFlame Top Rain will be able to exploit the utilization of this keystone on the side of the Akuma Katanas. For Oakland Esports, we see that double lethal tempo coming through for both Wizek and Keelan. For me, this is pretty interesting just because I've been seeing a lot more phase rush built onto that Udyr more recently, where you're just going for that full movement speed build. But maybe just due to the presence of Bello on that Karma, I feel like it's a little bit less utile here in this game. Overall, it's always nice to have that extra damage for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Going to start this one on off as we finally get out of our pause. Soli going to take a little bit of abuse there as he gets spotted out in the bush to start things off. Bello going to go on in for the Mantra Q poke. Mr. Nefarious going to have that additional damage as well. It's going to be on this bot lane as this has been a really kind of lane-focused build, or draft rather, for the side of Oakland. We'll be expecting them to take control over this wave to get themselves ahead early on. We'll see if that ends up paying off for them here, as they're probably going to want to snowball this bottom lane to really play out their team comp as drawn up.
One thing that really surprises me is that Extorted went for Longsword, but I believe that they went for no potions alongside it. They're just going to really hope to accelerate their build path, but against a lane that's going to be as poke-heavy as Bello and Mr. Nefarious are, this might be a bit dangerous, especially if you misposition a bit, or once this wave bounces back, if you're kind of caught up and caught out by even a few Mantra Qs.
Yeah, definitely a risk to be keeping in mind for what they've gone there. Going to save a little bit of additional money for other endeavors, other builds that are going to come up later on. Try to finish off those items when they get the opportunity. This does, in theory, speak to the fact that they're going to want to try to rush that Mythic very quickly here. And not expect to really be dominating this lane very early on, but it does certainly mean they're going to have to play on the back foot here. Here we can see Keelan going aggressive in the mid lane, getting good trades up against Klexo. That is to be expected here. That is kind of what they made this swap happen for. And meanwhile, it's John just doing his best to gather up what he can up against this ranged Gnar.
Yeah, a solid yoink indeed coming down for Keelan.
Okay. Getting word from Prod that we think Extorted may have sold their item by mistake, and that might be why they don't have pots. Because, yeah, if we take a look at the gold there, they weren't sitting on like 100 to 175 extra gold. Unfortunate if that is what ended up happening here, but we'll see how they managed to play it out anyways. Doubtful has come in for their first gank into this bottom lane. Weren't able to make anything happen other than get the flash out of Bello, as now the 3v3 going to get started on up. Here comes Wizek coming on in, going to be getting knocked up by Soli, but they don't even have access to the Glacial Augment. Going to end up going on down here. Flash forward from Doubtful, but doesn't have the damage either. Double kill goes up to Wizek to start things off, and Extorted now going to have to head for the hills. Big 2-0 play in the bottom lane for Oakland Esports to start it off.
Oh my goodness, that is a solid start for Oakland Esports. They're going to get so much advantage here bot side of the map. Bello went pretty darn low, but at the end of the day, that is your job as a support. And I think that maybe a little bit of what we're talking about with Soli is coming to fruition here, Gordo. Obviously, it may not be the case that Aftershock or Guardian would even be able to save them in that circumstance, but I think that it just speaks to the fact that Alistar has to be a little bit less confident in how they go in for engages, because they just get mowed down super early. And sure, maybe later on as a support it's fine if you die, but this is still gold going over to Wizek on this Udyr, who's causing some more chaos in the mid lane. Oh, that's actually Alistar.
Soli has moved on through here, gets the knockup onto Keelan here, but they just don't have the damage with this pre-6 Yasuo. And Keelan, with a little bit of help from Wizek, they're going to pick up another kill there onto Soli, take that Alistar down to 0 and 2, and take them up to 3 and 0 on the board. Wizek on this Udyr having the dream start here, is going to be stealing away camps as well, and now finding a good angle on the Doubtful. Klexo not really going to be able to help here. Doubtful's got nowhere to go. He's got no flash. Wizek goes up on a killing spree, gets his third, and it's just collapsing all around for the Akuma Katanas. They just cannot get anything started here. Extorted going to be forced to flash in the bottom lane.
Yeah, I was so shocked by Soli going for that roam mid. I thought it was the Udyr for a second, and my mind was just not working, Gordo. But I think that once again, speaks to the early game power of Wizek on this Udyr. You have the confidence to just walk into the enemy jungle, and with those kills under your belt, the fact you're just able to run at Doubtful, who doesn't have flash, and pick up yet another kill going on a killing spree this early means that you are now going to be the sole focus of the Akuma Katanas on the Rift. No Flame top lane up top is going to have to play pretty darn safe now, given the fact that at any point in time, this very angry Bear Man is going to be running him down.
Yeah, so the snowball approach for Oakland working out great so far here. Doubtful going to try to get something started in the bottom lane once again. Really wants to relieve some pressure here. He would get spotted by that control ward of Mr. Nefarious and Bello. They're going to back away as soon as they get the wave crashed on in. So no opportunity for Doubtful to make anything happen. We'll be hitting this level 6 mark here pretty soon. The addition of the Moonfall should give him some power to make something happen. We'll see if he wants to go and try to gank Keelan in the mid lane, as Klexo has his ultimate available as well. Might be tough to do, though. Set at completely full HP, already has the tabbies completed, is going to be about as resistant to that play as he's ever going to be.
Yeah, that's for sure. We see a little bit of an AP rush there with a blasting one onto Doubtful to hopefully get a bit more work done against champions like Keelan Set. But right now, that just requires presence in lane that you just simply do not have, especially with Wizek invading you at your red buff.
Yeah, Soli is here for the backup, but Doubtful going to be forced to smite for health. Soli just going to knock him as far away as possible. Now the re-engage from Doubtful to try to fight this one on out. Are they going to be able to do so? No ultimate available quite yet, but it's a big shutdown earned for Klexo as he finds his way on in there, slides on through, and picks himself up 600 gold. Soli going to end up going on down here, goes over to It's John. No Flame dodging away. Doubtful steals his own red buff right back as well, so he gets the buff. They trade 1-for-1 on kills, but it's a big shutdown that goes on over to Klexo. Favorable play for Akuma, all things considered.
Yeah, Keelan just not able to get over to stop that play in time. If he was just a few seconds earlier, you could have showstoppered one of these big players out of the fight and taken that damage away from Udyr, but things are going to continue to go on in the mid lane.
Klexo diving on in there with the ultimate, not quite getting it off, though, is going to end up falling on down before he can use it. Doubtful got the Moonfall, but just the follow-up from Last Breath, I guess, couldn't get done in time. A little bit desynced on the play. Klexo will end up going on down. Doubtful will pick up the CS in the mid lane.
And I love the extent to which we're seeing Oakland Esports really exploiting the weak points of the champions here against Akuma Katanas without Klexo fully scaled up yet. You're able to go for some big plays there in the mid lane. It's John taking quite a bit of damage. We'll go back into Mininar now.
Yeah, It's John does not have access to the ultimate, so not going to be able to chase any farther. They trade about evenly in HP. Meanwhile, bot lane CS difference getting closed up at least a little bit. Wizek getting onto this Rift Herald. We'll see if he finds No Flame. No Flame does have access to the flash, but this is going to be a tough escape. He's now kind of stuck in the wrong jungle. As Wizek is chasing onto him, he's going to jump over the wall, but he's going to find himself face-to-face with Keelan, trying to just run through into the mid lane now, but this is a lot of damage from this set. No Flame going to be forced to flash. Looks like he will get out with his life, but steps up just a little bit too far and gets punished for it.
Yeah, that's a huge punish. Luckily, It's John was pulled away from the top lane, so they weren't able to fully exploit that topside advantage that comes from Gnar having to run away and then back without a teleport in hand. But it's still going to be super, super valuable for the side of Oakland Esports. They're just going to get a lot of advantage pulled through here early on in the game. And with that early Rift Herald taken, they're going to have a lot of pressure on the map in order to try to go for this Hextech Drake as well.
Keelan getting a nice pull in there onto Klexo. Will be able to escape here, but so far in this early game, it's been all about Wizjak. A fantastic performance in the early game on the Udyr. About to find Doubtful again. Doubtful going to try to flash away, getting over to the Blast Cone, but he's just going to get knocked back on in. That's going to be a 3-man ultimate and a dash out to safety, but he will get chased on down. Wizjak just a little bit too fast. Klexo getting a nice knockup down under the turret, trying to finish off on Keelan, but that's going to be a big shield coming on up from the Haymaker, and a double kill earned for Wizjak. He's just too tanky. He can't be stopped. Soli flashes on in to try to lock him down under the turret, but not enough shots going to come on through. He's going to continue to stay alive through the Ignite, through the turret shots, through everything, and the Rift Herald going to dock down even more plates.
Yeah, this is a disastrous start for the Akuma Katanas. I don't think that this is what they were imagining with their scouting and with their bracket selection, Gordo. They're going to have to fight hard to come back into this one, but they are down a clean 5k gold right now, and with mid tower being dusted here early on, I think that this is just more priority claimed over these rivers, more plays that are possible for Wizjak, and a higher chance of just closing this game out for Oakland Esports.
Story going to be forced to flash there, throws on down the bullet time, but he's tanking up the culling the whole time. Going to have to use the heal there. Both summoners down and now forced to recall. Good play, 2v2 in the bottom lane. 2 summoners for 2 summoners, nearly taking down Extorted. He will barely manage to stay alive.
Yeah, and Mr. Nefarious is at full health with that Noon Quiver already built, so they can stay in lane if they want to push this back in. Klexo getting caught out and getting ignited.
Yeah, and Keelan just gonna pick on up that kill solo. Chases him the rest of the way down, and No Flame going down to the top lane as well. It's collapsing across the board. Doubtful gonna fall on down for a double kill to Keelan. Straight 1v2, by the way. No assists on either of those kills. Keelan demolishes the mid-jungle duo of the Akuma Katanas.
This is one of the things I was talking about with that early set selection by Keelan. I was talking about how they have the propensity to 1v2 even if the jungler comes into the area, and I think that's becoming all the more pressing of a fact. Now that this set, who started off 2-0-3, is now up to 4-0-3 of all things, it's basically going to be impossible to kill that champion with less than 3 players in the area. Here's the sun going down to Soli.
Yeah, Wizjak just never letting up the pressure, and Soli pops that Unbreakable Will just a little bit too late to be able to stay alive, and now the dive coming through onto Extorted. Wizjak decides doesn't want to tank up the turret much longer if he doesn't have to, but this Lethal Tempo Sunfire Aegis build actually has so much armor, is so tanky, and is so difficult to deal with. He's just running away with the game here. Doubtful gonna come and try to defend this bottom lane with Extorted. Klexo getting called to the area, but he's gonna find himself face-to-face with Wizjak, and now let's watch how this 1v1 goes with all the Lethal Tempo procs. Just nothing he can do. Wizjak finishes off that kill. Mr. Nefarious gets one in the bottom lane. Akuma Katanas are collapsing before our very eyes. Oakland Esports claiming kills across the board. 14 kills in 12 minutes.
This is one of those games where it just may not be it may not be worth the mental effort required to try to get back into this one. I'll be 100% honest here, Gordo. You don't want to start off the series with this demoralizing of a loss for Akuma Katanas, but given the fact that you have 5 games basically with which to come out with a winning record, it might just be the time to give this one away, come back with fresh faces and a better draft next time through. Right now, Wizjak is running rampant on the Rift, and there's just absolutely nothing they could do to stop this Udyr. Even if it is the case they'll be able to dogpile him, he has so much tankiness with that Sunfire Aegis that he might just be able to walk out of there alive, and Lord knows he's faster than basically everyone else.
And you know, Doubtful, who we were talking up, is you know, on my ballot, first team All-Pro jungler, or All-Star jungler, I suppose. We aren't paying these guys that much. But my first team All-Star jungler getting completely demolished in this game number 1 by a player who doesn't even qualify for the All-Star voting. He hasn't played enough games. This is his 3rd game here in the AVL, but he is crushing it in this game number 1 of our series here. And had some doubts about Oakland Esports coming in as a much lower seed and even having to field a substitute, but this is a fantastic game one from them so far.
And maybe to an extent, it was just being in the right place at the right time. That rotation bot to start off a really solid counter gank into Doubtful definitely set the pace for this game. Solely went in and just didn't have the help. Speaking of not having the help, Extorted getting cold.
Yeah, Mr. Nefarious just gets the full pick there. It's John now getting collapsed on by 4 members. He's probably going to end up going on down there. The shutdown going to the Alistair.
Oh,
probably
no.
not where you want it. Just a little bit of extra salt in the wound there for a game where everything is already going wrong. A little bit of a Murphy's Law there. Makes a little bit of extra go wrong.
I mean, there are ways back into games like this. I've certainly seen solo queue teams throw hard enough to give away this kind of lead at 14 minutes, but this is a coordinated play. This is a bunch of really, really solid teams, basically the best that we have in the AVL, and I don't really know whether or not Oakland Esports, even as the lower seed, have the capability to throw this, frankly. They are just too far ahead, too early on. Wijek going to go in for the 2v2 here. No Flame top frame, not able to do the damage.
Check is actually just straight doing these guys under their turret. Now he's going to get ultied up, though. This might be a big shutdown earn for Klexo. He does manage to get it. It is in trade for No Flame top rain, as well as his flash. They do manage to get that big fat shutdown onto Klexo, and just like that, he's going to go right back on down. John, with the nice little shuriken flip into the execution, going to get himself another one on the board. Still probably a net positive play for the Akuma Katanas. They are happy to get that big shutdown, and they're happy to get it on the Yasuo in particular. But gonna take a lot more than that to work your way back into this game.
For sure, this is the win condition for Akuma Katanas right now. It's just going around the map as a death ball and picking up these bounties. Set and Lucian are the next ones on the chopping block here. Keelan just kind of staring down solely in 2 unwarded bushes.
Ferry's going all in up against Extorted here once again. Going to force the heal out. He will be able to walk on away, and Soli takes about half his health. And a little Keelan combo there. Gore Drinker already complete. Almost well on his way towards what's probably going to be the Death Stance as well here. Just so powerful, so difficult to respond to. They just don't have the itemization to compete with it. We were talking in the early pauses about how it was going to be when you go in with your Alistair, when you go in for your full AoE Wombo combo, you either kill him or you don't. And they are firmly in the don't category right now. It's just going to be tough to come back from. They just have to find these isolated picks using the tools that they would rather be using in the 5v5, knowing that the 5v5 would be a loss even if they did get that engage off.
Yeah, you really have to play oriented for picks, and in turn, you just lose so much priority across the map. Waves will be pushed in turn, and we see 2 dragons now over established for the side of Oakland Esports. And my eyes may deceive me here, Gordo, but is it the case that Extorted is currently building mid Kaisa on a misfortune?
It's going for a little bit of a little AP misfortune setup here. Gets your team comp a little bit of additional magic damage. Yeah, you already had access to that Diana, but will help to add in a little bit of extra in there, and will still do that AoE Wombo combo damage that you've drafted from the team comp. This is going to be a potential pick onto Keelan. They're not going to be able to land the Gnar into the wall, and now with Wijek coming to regroup, looks like the Akuma Katanas are just going to have to back away. They lost the Rift Herald, and there's no follow-up fight to be had for them.
Yeah, and this is about the time in which Oakland Esports are going to spike in aggression once again. They have that Rift Herald with which they're able to take down some big towers across the map. We see the pings already coming out. It looks like they may just want to march this one down mid. If they could already crack open that inhibitor turret, big plays could be had. That being said,
yeah, Wijek getting collapsed on here. They are trying to take down this Udyr, but he's going to be able to flash away. He's just a little bit too fast. They're going to try to move their focus onto Keelan, but Klexo just going to get one shot there by that Haymaker, and now the chase down from the rest of Oakland Esports. Just crushing them here. 4 for 0. Keelan unstoppable. Wijek very much the same. Akuma Katana's going to be put in the dirt here. 21-3 at 18 minutes. Oakland running away with it.
And I'm not really sure what your plan is in the second draft of this series now. This is such a fantastic start that will just put so much momentum into the Oakland Esports' court. They have the ability to win in stunning fashion against Akuma Katanas. That is for sure. That has been established as fact here with round one. So, what will Akuma Katanas look to do to come back? Who are they going to ban from this current lineup that we see coming through in game one for Oakland Esports? And in turn, how can they answer back against some of these powerhouse players like Wizek? That being said, I guess we do have to focus on the present. If you do want to get back into this one as Akuma Katanas, what do you think they're going to look to do right now, Gordo?
Yeah, they just have to keep trying to make these picks and get these shutdowns. But as we've seen, it's really tough to do, especially when some of the most fed members are the tankiest as well. You know, getting a good angle onto Mr. Nefarious or Bello or it's John would be a good start. They're not going to carry with them those huge shutdowns, but that's just got to be the look at this point. And then just trying to slow down the game as much as possible to make this immense gold gap not matter as much. But you know, it's going to be a tough task. Luckily the dragon stacking started a little bit late, so they're not going to have soul for a while. They still got like 10 minutes to wait on that, but yeah, I mean, definitely a tough scenario. Definitely the kind of scenario where you might want to start thinking about the next game. Luckily, I don't even think this is too draft related. I think this is more, you know, getting completely demolished in the first couple of levels related, and if they can avoid that, they'll do much better. Although they do get that pick on It's John.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's John is just kind of bodily baiting the entirety of Akuma Katanas away from the Baron, though, as we have four members of Oakland Esports coalesce on the Big Purple Worm. We see people coming across from the far side, but Mr. Nefarious is going to burn the culling in order to make sure that it goes down, but the fight may still occur.
Oh, gets the nice engage there onto Mr. Nefarious. They are trying to focus on down that Lucian. They're not going to be able to do it as he flashes away, and now here comes the damage from Wizek. A fully channeled bullet time. Going to barely do any damage to that Udyr keyline. Going to go godlike, and these Udyr set combo, they're just a little bit too strong. Mr. Nefarious returns to the fight from over the wall, going to pick himself up. A couple more kills. No Flame, now the last man, last standing, and it's just not going to matter here. A complete wipe once again for Oakland Esports. They lose no members, and they are about to complete the perfect ace here. No Flame trying to get away, but he's just going to get chased on down by that relentless pursuit. This might be the base getting busted on open here with the help of that Baron buff. Respawn's coming up soon, though. It's still very early in the game.
Yeah, I'm not really sure whether or not Oakland Esports are able to end it. It really depends on what kind of engage we see come through from Doubtful and company here, but they may just settle for taking all of these inhibitor turrets and in turn all of the inhibs. We are sitting about 30 seconds before the next dragon spawns. They may just want to peel back and grab that before the fight starts.
Ooh,
never mind.
Engage there with the Moonfall, but the damage, it's just not there. Look at how big Keelan is. Look at how big the Haymaker is. He just demolishes them with that one, and that's going to do it for game number one. The Akuma Katanas are slaughtered by Oakland Esports as they start themselves off with a nice 1-0 start to the series.
Yeah, Oakland Esports clearly have some aware to be. They thought that this was going to be a best of three, and when they checked their calendars, saw it was a Bo5, they thought, oh crap, we're going to have to win these ones fast to get out of here in time. 22 minutes to start this one off here in the AVL quarterfinals. Really excited to see what they come back through in game number two. But Gordo, what an exciting start to everything here.
Yeah, no, it was shell-shocked here a little bit, as I'm sure the Akuma Katanas are as well. You know, they came into this heavily favored, I would say, and Oakland Esports, with the substitute in the jungle, just put them right in the ground there. A dominant game one performance. You know, from the perspective of the Akuma Katanas, they're an experienced team. They've been together for a long time, the last couple of years. I'm sure they're going to be able to shake this one on off and just say, hey, you know, we botched a couple of early fights in a row. Udyr got completely out of control, and from there the game was over. And, you know, it's pretty easy to convince yourself of that narrative. So I expect them to come back in, not change up too much draft-wise for game number two, and just be ready to play out the game as normal. Treat it like that first game didn't happen, and just start all over, because that's really the only choice you have left.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I think that is basically the way that I view the game as well. And I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying there, Gordo, where it really was a botched play bot side that translated into a mess mid and in turn a very confident invade from Udyr before we even really saw backs come through. And that was enough to just set up the gold lead on champions that are known for 1v2ing, frankly, that defined the pace of that match. So there's definitely a lot of ways that Katanas can kind of springboard this back into the game, get us to a 1-1, and get us down for a big series for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, we're going to throw it to a quick break now while we get into draft for game number 2. But don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back, and we've got a competitive series on our hands. Well, maybe, or maybe Oakland Esports just keeps running away with it, as we'll find out in just a few short moments.
Everybody, panic! Hold on. I'm about to say something really cool. 3, 41, 9, and lift off! No one dies screaming without me. I feel like I forgot to shoot something. You're starting to bore me. She's such a loser, always ready to cry. Ah, come on. What's the worst that could happen?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Aegis Vanguard League quarterfinals, where Oakland Esports are up to a solid 1-0 start here over the Akuma Katanas. Looks like Akuma going to take the blue side here in game number 2. Get ready to go back to the drawing board. We mentioned at the end of that last game, I think you can't really chalk this one up to draft. Things went too wrong too fast for you to play the draft here in Yarko. So I'm curious if Akuma tries to run a very, very similar comp, or if they try to really change gears here just to get that full mental reset in from what was not a close game number 1.
Yeah, the side swap will start off the fact that we are going to see something different here. The question of how different the draft will be is still to be decided for sure. But as we talked about, it's a lot of very fixable mistakes that we saw come through fast and furious for Akuma Katanas that led to them losing this round number 1. Oakland Esports, on the other hand, I think they're probably going to look to draft that same exact team once again, if at all possible, and already adaptations coming through as the Udyr that Wizek was on will get knocked out here.
Yeah, they're facing against a jungler that they don't have a lot of scrim footage of, or they don't have any scrim experience against probably, and likely don't have a lot of competitive footage of, at least not in this team. And so, maybe take him off the Udyr. He had a fantastic game on that one, but maybe, the pool from there on out will be a little bit more limited. I'm taking a look at their match against USC here. He did play Kha'Zix and Trundle over there, so be on our eyes, or have those champions in mind as they go through the rest of this draft. We'll see what Akuma wants to first pick here. They do love that Misfortune still. Didn't work out for them in game number 1, but that doesn't mean it's not on the table for game number 2. The Irelia has been banned away as well. The Graves going to end up being the lock-in here, first pick for Akuma.
Yeah, doubtful, not necessarily going to pivot away from a carry-style jungler if that in fact will be their champion, but definitely moving in terms of overall strategy. Obviously, you're choosing someone who's much more AD-focused, that has a large amount of potential to counter jungle versus OU, so perhaps it is the case that they're just going to look to be the proactive one in this matchup, and it looks like in turn Oakland Esports going to answer back with that Volibear. Could go into the hands of Wizek, could go topside for It's John, but I would imagine that this is going to be a jungle volley at the end of the day.
Yeah, that would be my assumption as well. I don't think John has played the Volibear top yet this split. Mushin played a few games of the Volibear jungle when he was in as jungle. I would not be surprised to see Wizek bust out the same pick here, and we'll see what else they want to take. It is looking like it's going to be that Ziggs, likely for the bot lane for Mr. Nefarious. They have been willing to play this AP bot lane setup. This will be aggressive. This will be looking to take turrets early on. They'll also be pretty safe in that bottom lane, so definitely a good setup here from Oakland Esports to try to snowball through the game the way they did previously, now that their Lucian has been banned away.
One of the things I was going to remark on was that I was surprised that we saw the Jinx ban come through for Oakland Esports here, because it's just not a champion that we see Extorted actually pick up a lot, even here in the AVL where it's been very, very meta. But I guess if they're going to orient themselves towards an AP choice, it is totally fine for you to take the Jinx out of the rotation here. Meanwhile, though, Akuma Katana is going to go for the favored Ezreal Karma lane. This is something we've been seeing quite a bit across these players. That being said, at the end of the day, Karma is not one of Sully's more played champions.
No, not necessarily. Not only busted it out once so far this split, but it is a tried and true safe bottom lane. That Seraphine likely going to be paired on up with the Ziggs going into that bottom lane. So they're going to be looking to scale on up their own Enchanter to match up against this Karma as these two kind of caster-focused marksmen. Ziggs not really a marksman, but you know what I mean. These two caster-focused bot laners going to just be chucking Qs at each other and looking to keep bot lane pretty stable, barring jungler intervention. So now we're going to look to ban out solo laners. That Graves, we got to remember, can be a flex pick between the top lane and the jungle, maybe even towards mid lane as well. The Volibear in the same boat, but pretty firmly in that jungle camp, it feels like these days.
Yeah, I guess there's also some flex potential for Seraphine if we really want to get wild, but ever since 12.5 came around, we've mostly seen that champ put into the support role, and honestly, I'm a little bit surprised to see it pulled out here. I think there's just a little bit more viable picks that have been circulating around in this meta if you want to go for something that's enchantery. I mean, even the Sona here, I think, is pretty solid up into the Karma matchup. You're just able to play super, super far back, passively get through that lane. But perhaps Seraphine is the offensive edge necessary in order to make sure that Ziggs is able to enact the early game plan.
Ornn being hovered here for It's John. Not one that he's picked up this season, but feels very much in his wheelhouse of, you look at statistics for the team, It's John gets a pretty low economy compared to a lot of the other playoffs top laners. He plays the meta champions, he plays the Gnar, he plays the Jace, he plays the Graves, but he just ends up not really getting funneled gold to the degree that some of the other top laners do. I like this Ornn for him for that reason, to just kind of play for scaling up on that top side and to be a safe matchup into whatever does come on through, as that's going to be the Olaf locked on in for Doubtful here, so it looks like it is going to be that Graves in the top lane. It looks like it is going to be Doubtful's favorite in that jungle. Going to be looking to snowball away with the game. Going to already have that Karma there as an enabler. And now Rise in the mid lane to come on through, provide an additional CC, and provide a little bit more roaming power.
Ooh, I'm really liking this pivot from the Akuma Katanas. Putting Graves up into the relatively favorable matchup with the Ornn is definitely going to be a solid selection. But more importantly, Doubtful gets their favorite champion, the one that they have dominated on, the one that has propelled them to the top of the All-Pro voting, or at least close to it. I know that in your eyes, this is definitely a player to watch out for, Gordo. So it'll be exciting to see how they'll turn things around. It looks like they're definitely ready and eager to do so here in game number 2. Talon is going to be the answer for Oakland Esports. Now, that's a champion I haven't seen in quite a while.
Wow, yeah, that must be mid lane Talon, right? Unless my eyes deceive me here. That's a pick we haven't gotten to see in a long time, and even when we do see it, it's usually in the jungle. So, you know, part of me wants to say, you know, it's got to be Talon jungle, and then this must be like a Volibear top or mid kind of situation. But I don't think that's the case. I think this is probably going to be Talon mid facing off up against the Rise. Feels like, if I'm not mistaken, you know, not a crazy good matchup on paper. You know, Rise is kind of a short-range mage. Once he gets that Rune Prison, he can kind of lock you down and stop you from going on in once you make it clear that that is your intent. But you know, nonetheless, this is going to be the selection for Keelan here. We'll see how he's able to perform on it.
Yeah, I'm certainly puzzled by this choice at the end of the day. We haven't seen Keelan bust this out as a comfort pick recently, even in solo queue, I don't believe. So perhaps this is some super secret tech or weapon that they're stashing, or perhaps Oakland Esports are really looking to flip the script when we move into client draft. Go for something crazy, you know? Maybe Ornn support, Seraphine mid, Talon jungle, Volibear top. But at the end of the day, none of those permutations still really land firmly with a team that I'm comfortable saying has a really clear game plan, honestly.
Yeah, no, definitely an interesting one here. I'm looking at some OPGG stats here, some UGG stats here. You know, Rise does have only a 46% win rate up against the Talon, but Rise also has abysmal win rates against, like, everybody, because Rise in solo queue has, like, a 44% win rate. Yeah. So, you know, if anything, he loses less against Talon than he does against the field. He loses more against the field than he does against Talon. So, you know, at least on paper, doesn't feel like it's this crazy strong counter pick, but maybe something that Keelan's more comfortable on, and something that does kind of work out with the team composition that they've drafted for themselves. You know, they already have this kind of poke setup from the Ziggs. The Seraphine can be looking to make these pokes as well, and then they can go for this hard engage combo with the Stormbringer, with the Call of the Forge God, and then with Talon on top of them as well.
Yeah, I'm not uncomfortable with Oakland Esports trying to go towards one of these AD-oriented assassin picks, given the fact you're going to get plenty of tankiness coming through with Ornn and Volibear, and you already have your AP damage completely handled by the Ziggs and even the Seraphine, depending on how that support decides to build at the end of the day. But that doesn't change the fact that of all those champions that still remain in the pool with those parameters in mind, Talon is not coming up on the top, for me at least, especially there in the mid lane. I guess we shall see whether or not this is fully confirmed by the client draft, but it sure seems like it is for the time being, Gordo. Rise, I really like picked up as the last choice for Akuma Katanas, regardless of that matchup in the mid lane here, and regardless of those win rates that we're seeing coming through in solo queue, but that's been the case forever, right? I think our blue boy just needs complete rebalancing if we ever want to see them viable in that kind of environment, but we're happy to have him here.
Yeah, no, you know, Rise version 6.0 or whatever, I'm sure is well around the corner at some point or another. If he spends another year fully in the meta the way that he has so far here. But in the meanwhile, okay, so No Flame has locked in the Rise, by the way, in the in-client draft, looking towards the top lane. So we may see some additional flexibility coming in through here from Akuma. Graves mid lane was kind of, you know, that was the birth of this Graves solo lane, kind of fad that we found here. It was originally the lethality Graves going in that mid lane, perma shoving waves, and you know, scaling up to be really powerful later on. They ended up nerfing the Q cooldown and the mana cost, making it tougher to clear away those waves, which led towards, you know, this more shield bow focused top lane Graves that we see nowadays. But looks like it might be a little bit of a throwback, as that Rise has been locked on in for the top side, or we could see a Evil Geniuses-esque player swap instead as well, if they do still want to send it mid lane.
Yeah, there's a lot of different selections and strategies that could come through for sure, but given the lineup and how Oakland Esports is drafting, it looks like it will in fact be Talon versus Graves mid, all things considered. I don't really think that, given the fact that No Flame Top Brain has had a lot of experience on champions like the Graves, that they would want to pivot lanes if they so desire. I think that they're just going to stay top side of the map, and they're just kind of going to let Klexo gather up their resources and play out this marksman mid. I'm not actually sure how the Graves Talon matchup goes. I would imagine that Talon probably comes out a little bit more advantaged into it than the alternative of Rise versus Talon, but let me know what you think, Gordo. This is out of my depth for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Graves into ADs is always one of Graves' mid's better matchups because he gets armor off of True Grit. So you do, as long as you use first of all, if you use your E in, you get even more stacks, so you get a little bit of additional armor. I'm also going to be keeping my eyes then on how Klexo ends up building this. If he goes for the kind of lethality one-shot build, I feel like that's not super optimized up against this composition, because it's not going to be good against Ornn and Volibear, and you're going to have trouble reaching Ziggs and Seraphine.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're building full lethality, you don't want to be face to face with the Talon. So I actually think this might be a look towards a build that we normally see on Jungle Graves that Pioshik really piloted over in the LCK, which might be the Gore Drinker Graves. If you go the Gore Drinker Graves, you get a lot more CDR, so you get E up more often, so you get more True Grit procs, which gives you more armor and makes you more resilient up against the likes of this Talon, the likes of this Volibear. And you're going to be able to get that additional sustain because you're going to be against multiple melee range targets who you can then suck on up with that Gore Drinker. So maybe it's a Gore Drinker Graves look for a little bit more of a bruisery, brawly team composition. You're going to have a tanky Rise, you're going to have a tanky Olaf, you're going to have Karma shielding everybody, and Ezreal just untouchable on the back line as long as Talon doesn't get on him. Maybe that's the look here from the Akuma Katanas. Would definitely be an interesting, spicy response to an interesting draft from Oakland Esports.
Yeah, I think that going for that Gore Drinker Graves is definitely viable here, especially because you have that mage in the top side of the map, Gordo, and therefore you kind of want a front line of this sort. Obviously, Olaf is going to be pretty valuable in that role, but it's always nice to double up, especially with champions as avoidant as that Ezreal oftentimes are. And you get a lot of shielding, you get a lot of that resilience, as you were talking about with Soli on the Karma. On the other side, I think there's also some flexibility in how Oakland Esports wants to build out some of these champions as well. Specifically, Seraphine comes to mind here, because Volibear can build for damage, they can also build for tankiness, and given the fact that I think a double tank composition up against champions like the Ezreal is not too bad, we may in fact see the Seraphine pivot and go for a more magic damage oriented play style. But I also think that will totally depend upon what kind of gold income they're getting there in the bot side of the map. Ezreal's a very hard champion to pin down and kill, especially when your main form of CC is just going to be that doubled up beat drop.
Yeah, for sure. Gonna be on the lookout for that one as well. We are gonna throw it to a quick break here while we get loaded onto the Rift for Game 2. We'll see you guys in just a few short moments as a couple of spicy drafts as we get into Game 2 of Akuma Katanas taking on Oakland Esports here in our AVL quarterfinals. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the AVL Quarterfinals. We have got the Akuma Katanas now on the blue side, taking on Oakland Esports on the red. Oakland Esports up 1-0 in this series after a dominant game number 1. Now, a little bit more scaling in their draft. They've got themselves this Ornn, got themselves this Ziggs, of course, who, along with the Volibear, they got a whole bunch of additional turret damage. They're going to want to rip through some turrets. They're going to want to snowball with their talent, of course, with the Ornn. Going to be serving as that additional engage and that additional cushion later on as well. Meanwhile, a little bit of snowballing from the side of Akuma as well. They got this Olaf, they got this Graves mid lane, a little throwback that we haven't gotten to see in a few months. Gonna certainly be a spicy game to keep our eyes on.
Yeah, it's hard for me to feel out what's exactly going to happen early on. I would imagine there's going to be a lot of interest paid towards this mid lane of the map, and perhaps topside as well, especially for Wizek. As it is the case that Arise has not yet gotten tanky, they're going to start with that tier, and therefore this is the optimal time for Ischon to try to make a play against this mage champion. Meanwhile, mid as well, it's really going to be a back and forth for sure, and we are seeing a little bit of a march of Doubtful, Extorted, and Soli into enemy territory here, maybe looking to steal a buff to start things off.
Yeah, and they've called out Wizek here pretty effectively. Wizek is starting up on that red side, so he's not even going to know that this is going on. We'll probably have a solid idea once Bello spots Ezreal coming out of his own jungle. Ping's coming on across, so they know this has been stolen away. See if Wishak tries to engage in a little bit of vertical jungling here this time around, which would, in fact, unlock Doubtful to maybe make a play on this bottom lane, and this time do it uninterrupted, unlike where everything went wrong in game number 1.
Yeah, we'll see how things pivot, and we'll see if there's going to be any contestation of this vertical jungling attempt. Currently, Volibear's just going to clear out those Raptors, and it looks like, yes, he is going to cross over into enemy territory as well. The question is Klexo or NoFlame Topbrain going to try to catch this Volley out or do anything about this?
It doesn't look like it. Keelan's got the push, so he's going into regroup with his jungler here, and NoFlame, only level 2, not going to be the strongest Rise in the world either, so we'll just be in agreement between the junglers to trade on over their camps here. We'll see if that ends up having an impact on either of the side lanes, as now both teams are fully face up, knowing that one of them is definitively weak side. There is no jungler. That's known by both sides. So top lane for Akuma, going to have to play safe. Bottom lane for Oakland, going to have to play safe.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see how NoFlame Topbrain fares. This is a champion that's able to get out of a lot of sticky scenarios if they get to level 6 and are able to use their Realm Warp properly. It may help, especially against someone like Wizek on that Volibear, who's able to shut down those turrets and get really solid dives off. So going to be dramatic indeed if this vertical jungling continues throughout the remainder of the game. I would imagine it might get broken at some point, though. We see Olaf clearing out their own bot side jungle right now, and it looks like they're going to rotate up, but the push is already coming fast and heavy for Extorted and Soli.
Yeah, good poke damage coming on across here, as the push has been pretty strong here for Extorted and Soli. You know, they have this Karma Ezreal duo. You keep autoing the waves. Mr. Nefarious not really demolishing those minion waves the way that he one day will on this Ziggs, and so Extorted and Soli taking full control over the bottom lane, taking full advantage of the vertical jungling, of knowing the Volibear is nowhere to be seen. They're going to try to claim themselves an early plate off the back of it. Looks like they are going to get it here.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate it for sure. It's John, meanwhile, pushing on in that top side of the map. Really solid reactions from all players involved for sure. And right now, things are remaining relatively peaceful. There is the rake coming through for Keelan. He's going to jump forward, get shot twice for his attempt, though.
Yeah, the Graves playing this out pretty safe. You know, the all-in for Talon doesn't really come in until level 6, and he's done a good job of keeping himself sustained up. He's used the health potion, he's got the Doran's Blade, he's got the fleet work as well to keep himself pretty sustained up, as Bello takes a big trade in the bottom lane. Extorted, landing that W, getting on in with the Arcane Shift to proc it, going to keep that Seraphine low.
Yeah, I like it, the fact that they were able to get that root off. That beat drop is exactly what I was talking about, is your main means of poke and engage on this champion. But at the end of the day, you are one of the squishiest supports in the game, and you really don't have a whole lot of kill pressure given the fact that Mr. Nefarious is going for that teleport on the Ziggs, and you just simply have that exhaust in turn. So it's really going to be up to any kind of jungler intervention in order to turn things around here for the pushes that we see coming through for Extorted and Soli. Across the map, though, things look like they are normalizing a little bit after that early bout of a vertical jungling. We, in fact, would see Wizek venturing down to their bot side. They're going to clear the second spawning of the Wolves and the Gromp here in order to begin a more irregular pattern. This means that the lanes will probably equalize a bit, especially in that top and bot side of the map. And so we'll see if this new equation leads to anything in particular. There is a dragon currently spawned, and I would say, given the fact that Mr. Nefarious and Bella just went for a back, this is a solid time for Oakland Esports to go for it.
Yeah, they are positioning like they want to. Bello spotting out Soli here as they move on in towards the bottom jungler. Wijek is there as well. They don't know 100% where Doubtful is, although he's actually recalling on the top side. They're just clearing on out some of the blast cones, and now Soli might get a little bit caught on out here. Volley chases him down, gets walled, and there's going to be the park over the wall from Keelan. Keelan gets the first blood there as Soli just steps up too far.
This is a lot of gold going over to Extorted on the Ezreal, just free farming it up bot side of the map for sure. But at the same time, getting that priority is going to be a huge call, and I like the fact that they pivoted on the knowledge that Klexo still had not backed yet. Now we're seeing the back finally coming through. It does not look like it's going to be Gore Drinker, given what is currently being constructed. But things definitely beginning to heat up a little bit. We'll see if any more contestations come through from any of these champions.
Yeah, Klexo deciding he wants more damage, which is understandable, especially, you know, with the Ezreal bottom lane. You sometimes want a little bit more physical damage on in there, but you know, feels like it's going to be really rough to work your way through this Volibear, through this Ornn, if that's the item build you decide to go for. You know, the armor boot's already coming in through for Wijek. Gonna have to be reliant on the teammates to try to work their way through that one. See how that ends up paying off for him. Will at least be able to clear the waves, though, super effectively here, as Doubtful is going to look to start on up onto this dragon. The Olaf, so strong in the early game, should be able to claim this one without too much trouble.
Yeah, I really like the pivot of Olaf into the area. Akuma Katanas gave up a kill, but they will, in fact, grab that first Drake. And I think that stops the kind of play pattern that Oakland Esports were looking for here. These are champions that do definitely scale up, but you want priority in order to go for the big engages that Ornhorn can allow. Speaking of engages, we see it called right there. Keelan going for the dive topside of the map, but unfortunately, the knockup will not come through, and No Flame Top Brain going to stay alive using their flash.
Yeah, pops the Shadow Assault, just doesn't quite have the damage to deal through No Flame Top Brain. So now the bottom lane fight going on through here. Mega Inferno Bomb gets a lot of damage onto Extorted. He gets caught on out right in the center. Mr. Nefarious going to halt Extorted and Soli's advance right there, forcing back this bot lane from the side of the Akuma Katanas, and they are now going to have to chill back on out. Stop their engage. They got Bello pretty low, but the Ziggs is who they really have to fear.
Yeah, Ziggs has already hit level 6. That ultimate has done so much to scare off Extorted and Soli. Luckily, they kept their flashes intact, which is pretty darn impressive given the amount of kill pressure that we just saw come through for the Ziggs. But that will just kind of allow for them to return to lane and try to equalize things. They'll be able to play a little bit more forward once again, especially knowing that it's going to be a little bit before that R comes back. Wijek getting caught out, though.
Doubtful flashes in, tries to get the blast cone to knock Wijek back, but does separate himself from the bear in doing so. Realm Warp is available. No Flame going to try to come down and join, but it's John is following him, so just going to head on back to the lanes, call this one a wash. They do force the Volibear out of the jungle, but he does manage to get himself a blue buff for the trade. They're going to start on up the Rift Herald here, though. They've called on up Soli. Bello still hanging around the mid lane. This should be a good pickup here for the Akuma Katanas.
Yeah, really solid call. The fact he just forced out the ultimate from Wijek also means that the way in which we could see Oakland Esports try to go for a steal or a fight really gets reduced out here. They won't be able to just ult over the wall and get the slam down onto someone. It's John, meanwhile, going to get pinned a little bit and get poked down, but things are going to stay relatively even topside of the map. We don't really have a lot of damage coming through with what No Flame Top Brain is building early on here. It's Mana Crystal, it's Tier, and it is completed boots already.
Definitely is, and getting stronger in the top lane for sure is No Flame Top Brain. He's not really going to be able to make use of Riser's roaming capabilities on the Realm Warp. Playing from the top lane, he's a little bit more isolated, but he can keep himself farmed on up alongside this Ornn. Show up to team fights as a pretty powerful mage. Now there's going to be an engage in the bottom lane. Bello going to be forced to flash away as Extorted threatens with that charge up Arcane Barrage, but the damage from that ultimate going to keep him on back, and here comes Wizak to try to turn around this fight, flashes on in, gets the double kill.
No way.
Tears apart the bottom lane of the Akuma Katanas, and Wizak again on the board early, 100% KP, getting Oakland Esports off to a good early start.
Ooh, and things are really getting dicey here, Gordo. Bello didn't even use Encore, given the fact they were level 5 for most of that play, which means that you have yet another source of engage and fighting here. We see Rift Herald being dropped in turn by Klexo and Doubtful here, and that charge will get a lot of gold over, but Keelan gonna go in.
Keelan diving on in, one shot's Doubtful. No tank stats on this Olaf, no boots completed yet, just melts right through him there with that early game Talon damage. Will claim himself that kill. 2 kills on Keelan, 2 kills on Wizak, the mid-jungle duo of the Oakland Esports, once again dominating in the early game.
Wow, that is a really solid set of kills already constructed over on Oakland Esports. This is a little bit more delayed than what we saw last game. I don't think anything as disastrous as what we witnessed there is going to occur again, but it certainly is scary that you already have Wizak able to push those 2 kills over to whatever lane they decide to gank, and Talon has kind of gotten out of that dicey early phase that we were worried about here. They're going to be able to operate more as just a hyper-mobile assassin that'll be able to kind of be everywhere on the map that they so please. That being said, that is going to be a lot of gold and a lot of plates taken away from the tower that they're defending, so they're going to have to be a little bit judicious about how they roam against Klexo.
Yeah, definitely here, as now going to be in the mid lane. Klexo trading up against Keelan. Very strong in the 1 versus 1 here, can keep his armor stacked on up with the True Grit, but has to be conscious of how strong Keelan is with that Gore Drinker completed with all the additional gold, and especially once Shadow Soul comes back up in a couple seconds. Would be interested to see how that 1v1 ends up transpiring if everybody lands all their abilities. Klexo, though, not going to have time to find out as he's getting chased on down by Wizak. Going to flash away to try to regroup up with Doubtful. Is Doubtful going to pop the ultimate, try to one-shot onto Keelan here. Keelan alive at just barely any HP. Avoids the undertow, but he's not going to be able to avoid the turret shots. Shutdown goes on over to the jungler. The Akuma Katanas as the lockdown is now coming through onto Soli. He's got nowhere left to go and is going to fall on down to the Baron. Meanwhile, Mega Inferno Bomb picks off onto Klexo with a 2-for-1 in favor of the side of Oakland Esports.
Yeah, definitely worrisome. That was a solid trade and good shutdown gold going over to the Akuma Katanas, but Oakland Esports are picking up a lot of priority here. The fact that Doubtful had to face tank a lot of damage in those fights before finally getting out into the mid lane means that's going to be hard for him to contest much of anything, as Hextech Drake will be taken by Oakland Esports. And honestly, the more that I've been watching these games, Gordo, the more I realize the value of taking second Drake, because it delays a possible win condition and fast dragon stacking, and it therefore just slows the game down tempo-wise quite a bit recently. Keelan, meanwhile, just going to catch Doubtful, trying to steal that red buff away from his jungler, and he's going to walk that right back to the pit.
Yeah, a tough one there. Be able to donate that one on over. Keelan is now giving up the shutdown. It's now a little bit set behind, but they were able to get a kill back onto Klexo as well. Really only Doubtful cashing on out there, and once again, it's an unfavorable play. It gives more gold over to Mr. Nefarious. And once again, 6-1 in the early game. This is dominance from Oakland Esports. You know, they're no crazy level 3 play in the bottom lane to turn things around. No major misplays to be seen from the Akuma Katanas. It's just Oakland playing this early game better. Wizak playing this early game better, showing up where he needs to be, and netting themselves, again, a very solid lead.
Yeah, Wizak has definitely been standing out on this one. Makes me wonder whether or not the choice to bring him in for these games was a little bit more tactical than just substitutions. We saw them pop off earlier on as well, playing in the jungle a few games back too. That being said, there is still a lot of life left in the Akuma Katanas. When you look at that gold lead, it is definitely not insurmountable, and you have a lot of that shutdown gold over where you want it on Doubtful, who has proven before for them to be a very capable and very powerful jungler. That being said, Ballo is going to drop that encore top side of the map and get the charm down.
Oh, and the follow-up snare is going to net this a kill for Keelan. The Mega Inferno Bomb gets completely locked on down in the center, and now Keelan going to chase down onto Extorted as well. Klexo is coming on up to regroup with the fight and to dissuade them from diving any further, but it's another free kill along with the turret netted for Oakland Esports, as now they're calling on down Wizek. They're going to set up the dive with the Stormbringer. There's going to be a big Arcane Barrage to try to set on down that potential siege, but Bello gets one shot there. Here comes Wizek trying to turn off the turret, but he's got nobody to back him on up, and now he's getting chased on down by the Olaf. This might be a little bit of a throw from the side of Oakland. Big shutdown goes over to Doubtful. That's going to be a 2-kill pickup there off of a big mistake from Oakland Esports, and they're looking to make it more. They're chasing down Keelan. He's going for the parkour over the wall. He will manage to escape for now, but now they've spotted Mr. Nefarious on the recall as well. No Flame going to flash on in, going to get the lock on down, and is going to finish off Mr. Nefarious. Nowhere left to go with the satchel charge when you're locked on down by the Rise. 3 kills earned for Akuma and the Rift Herald to boot.
Yeah, and they're right back in it for sure, Gordo. This is a huge play. Grabbing this Rift Herald is honestly pretty valuable as well. It'll just help you equalize these calls that we've been seeing made by Mr. Nefarious, who's just demolishing towers. Klexo caught out heavily.
Yeah, the Orb and Seraphine, they take a while to work your health bar down, but they can do it, and they have enough CC to keep that Graves held in place. He will eventually go on down. Turret earned in response here by the side of the Akuma Katanas.
Yeah, my apologies. I did not think they had the kill pressure in order to do so, given that that is, in fact, Moonstone Seraphine. They will be getting Encore back up onto Bello pretty soon here, which is just allow for more of those crazy plays like what we saw start off those fights topside. Clearly, there's still a lot of pressure that comes through from this pairing of the Ziggs as well as Bello, and Keelan's always going to be on the sidelines just waiting to see where to dive next.
Yeah, now for the real cash out for the Ziggs. They want to get this mid-inner turret. They want to open up the rest of the map. They can continue sieging on turrets, catapulting themselves ahead in gold. As Keelan, that is not the recipe, my friend. He's going to get caught on out there by the Olaf. Can't quite get the damage on through with Chain Vest now completed. He's going to have to parkour his way on out of there. Bello and Keelan both incredibly low, but neither will fall on down.
Yeah, that was a little bit overeager by Keelan right there. Maybe just not managing vision well enough to see that so many people are grouping in that area. But now this is going to provide a little bit of a pushback for Akuma Katanas and delay that big buy that we were talking about, Gordo. Mr. Nefarious is not going to be able to claim the tower right here without backup.
No, definitely going to be tough to do. Siege coming through in the top lane. It's John and Klexo just farming it on out here. They've moved the Graves back up to his home and the Rise back up to his Rise. Now sitting bot lane, but has been clearing out waves in the mid lane for a fair while here. Hasn't gotten any crazy uses of the Realm Warp off, but now is the upgraded one. Will probably be looking to do just that.
Yeah, this is a decent call. I like the fact that we're seeing the champions with currently Unleashed teleports being up, going to the top side of the map, but action in the mid lane.
Yeah, that's going to be the Ragnarok pop, but the damage is just too big. He goes into the stasis, but he's going to get finished on off by Mr. Nefarious on the Ziggs. Klexo now looking to chase this on back, trying to get himself a little bit of gold wherever he can, but Keelan's just a little bit too evasive, and Wizek a little bit too tanky, goes back on in for that knock-on, and now following on up is the powerful front line of It's John. He's getting melted on down eventually, but there's the dive on in. There's the Shadow Assault from Keelan. Going to be able to net another one onto Soli. It's 2 kills so far for 0, but the siege is still coming on through. Mr. Nefarious has the blue buff, can keep raining on down those bombs, and is now threatening to satchel charge down this mid turret. Extorted and No Flame, they want to defend, but they just can't. They're going to lose their mid outer turret, and they're going to lose the dragon as well.
The strength of Oakland Esports' comp is really beginning to shine through here, Gordo. You have that demolishing power from Mr. Nefarious that just allows for him to sit mid, take a turret, all the while after winning that fight. Wizek ventures down there, grabs a second dragon over for their side, and even after a few throws there top side of the map from over-eagerness and greed, they will answer right back and show how they took a commanding lead in Game 1. They're going to notch up some big kills here in Game 2.
Yeah, definitely. Looking a little bit like Game number 1. The gold lead isn't as impressive, but the kills, once again, going super heavily in the favor of Oakland Esports. The objectives favoring them as well here. They've got a little ways to go until they can get themselves that Dragon Soul, but a couple more fights and they'll certainly be able to do it. They are demonstrating a fair bit of team fight prowess here for sure. This Olaf, he's not really going to be able to be a damage threat for much longer in this game. Will kind of fall off in that department, and it will be difficult to really match up against all of the damage that he's going to have to run right on through. You know, in the form of the Ziggs, in the form of this Volibear and this Talon. They're going to work their way on through him eventually, and you know, can't do it all on the side of Doubtful. Really want to be getting ahead early on this Olaf, and can't do it so far.
Yeah, if we saw the gold lead flipped, actually, I think that I would be far more comfortable with Oakland Esports' position than I am with the current state of Akuma Katanas. The fact that What? They're starting a Baron? Excuse me for a second, yeah. Gordo.
That's going to get spotted on out there by the True Shot Barrage as well. Klexo is coming on in. This could be a disaster for Oakland, but they are going to be able to finish it on off. The smite isn't the best, but it will be able to secure it on the half of the Ziggs. And now here comes the Stormbringer to get a little bit of additional HP, but they're going to fall on down. Doubtful's already waiting on the other side to try to jump right onto this Ziggs. Dives onto Mr. Nefarious. Big shutdown comes through from Bello, falling on down to Extorted, and now they're going to try to chase him the rest of the way on down. Here's the interference coming on through from that call. The Forge God going to knock up Klexo and No Flame to try to secure the escape of these remaining Baron buffs. It's 2 members down, but it's in trade for the Baron buff going on over to the side of Oakland.
Incredible presence of mind for It's John to knock up the people coming out of Realm Warp rather than the rest of the group of Akuma Katanas, because that just prevented a flank from dropping down on to some of these big players that have the Baron buff, and the people like Mr. Nefarious that stay alive are the ones that you want to see these minions surround. So this is still, at the end of the day, a pretty solid pickup for Oakland Esports here early on. Basically, on a Baron spawn, and we shall see what they translate that into. At the same time, though, that gold could be the tipping point in some of these team fights. Maybe Akuma Katanas could finally try to grab some things back.
It's a possibility. It's an option if they can try to find an opportunity to snag something. You know, this bot lane turret, it's pretty low. They've still got a little bit of standing gold to be found over there. Now, going to be another dragon in about 2 minutes if they want to try to contest for that one. They did manage to kind of catch him with their pants down a little bit there on the Baron. A lot of tools already blown. Wizak already very low. That does net them a very solid fight, but they're not going to get that opportunity every single time. And, you know, if you have a different fight line, if you have Mr. Nefarious safely behind his front line instead of jumping right into the Olaf, if you have Keelan diving onto your back line, then these fights get a lot tougher.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, Wizak gonna run forward here though, and it looks like we're gonna get something started up right near the base of the Akuma Katanas.
Yeah, I don't think they have the damage to deal with Olaf here. Now they got the backup. Mega Inferno Bomb comes through. Keelan is hanging out nearby. Now, Doubtful and Soli feel like they need to head for the hills and retreat back under their turret. Doesn't add a little bit of time for Wizak and Keelan to keep pushing, and actually, you know, with that Zig Satchel charge, they just work their way through the bottom inner turret. The split push here, 1-3-1, or 1-2-2 rather, with the help of this Baron buff, really paying off big time for Oakland here. They already cashed out in the bottom lane. What else can they get here? Hopefully not a death on Wizak. Wizak has to avoid everything there. Dodges out with the True Shot Barrage. Keelan getting chased on down as well. Going to have to use the Shadow Assault to try to escape. Meanwhile, though, top lane turret going to fall on down, so it's 2 inner turrets. Now, will they be able to get on out with their lives? Realm Warp coming on through in the bottom lane. No Flame going to get locked on down, but Wizak is arriving just in time. Teleport now being channeled by John to rejoin with the rest of them. And Keelan, no Shadow Assault, but is in the area as well. Mr. Nefarious, incredibly low here. Here comes Klexo, trying to find his angle onto this squishy bot lane. Looking to move on to Bello. Bello's going to be able to stay alive. There's a big double kill earned by Keelan. Keelan is rampaging through the back line, and he's got John on his backside. Triple kill goes on over to Keelan. And now the follow-up from Wizak. This is a huge fight for Oakland Esports. It was a little messy to start on out, but they got all the damage they need from their mid laner. Klexo trying his best to kite this one on out, trying to stay alive, but his jungler is going to fall on down as well, and now the chase down is just a little bit too much. Ace is earned for Oakland Esports as they continue to take control of game number 2 and get themselves on a soul point.
And things were actually looking relatively stable. Sure, they were losing towers to that Baron buff, Gordo, but that fight, that engage by No Flame top brain and the collapse to the bot side of the map, unfortunately just results in them getting aced. They're going to give up soul point here, and furthermore, we will see most of Oakland Esports being able to back with a ton of gold in their pockets.
Indeed, they do there. Was really close on that dragon. True Shot Barrage, knocking it down to about 50 HP. It started almost making the hero play, but doesn't end up working out. And now, it's a 5k gold lead over to the side of Oakland Esports. And now, Keelan is just huge. I wish we had replays here in Yarko, because I have no idea how this ultless Talon dived into 3 members and killed 2 people. I just have no idea how he did it. He had John there for backup eventually, sure, but feels like something that shouldn't be allowed to happen. I'm sure some Gore Drinker shenanigans were involved, but still crazy play by Keelan there.
Yeah, that is upgraded Gore Drinker constructed onto Keelan's champion. And we also are seeing a lot of damage being boosted through by Mr. Nefarious as well. Let's not doubt the Ziggs' potential in this game to just do crazy things with that Leandries. That being said, Bello's going to go down here to Extorted.
All right, yeah, Bello going to end up falling on down there a little bit early on. The Ceaseless Hunger is completed for Keelan, as you said here, so he's feeling pretty strong. Upgraded Ornn items on a couple of members here. We will see. I do see the, what's the Leandries upgraded Ornn item called? I don't even remember. I'll think about that one for a little bit. But meanwhile, John getting caught on out here, slowly looking to root him on up. They are following this Ornn, but he's pretty tanky. Meanwhile, Wizjak getting caught in the mid lane, but he can say the same. He's pretty beefy. He doesn't really care. He can just keep shrugging on and off. He's got the redemption to regen back up, and now Doubtful taking more than he bargained for here. There's going to be Call of the Forge God. No Flame and Klexo, though. They're dishing out damage in the mid lane. They're trying to stop this wherever they can. John takes a little bit more harass, but so far it is the side of the Akuma Katanas getting a little bit more damage out than they take, chunking this front line low. They don't have Warmogs. They're not going to regen back up. That's going to be Keelan also falling low as well. Feels like they're going to have to disengage here sooner or later, although maybe it's just Wizjak looking for a big flank angle or just setting up around the Baron. They're going to start it up. Even though they're already low on HP, they feel like they do not care. They've got all of this regen from their Seraphine with the Starcaster completed as well with that Ornn upgrade. It's going to keep them topped on off, and they're going to look to try to start on off the fight. Baron down to about half HP as they're going to peel on off and look for the engage now. Focusing on a no-flame top lane. Wizjak going to come on through for the stun. Manages to get it onto Soli, diving on forward with the Stormbringer. Soli falls on down. Now Klexo on the backside. He's going to get charmed on up there by that Encore, getting chased on down and getting burned up by the Leandries. No flame. Getting taken on out by Keelan, and it's another wipe for Oakland Esports. Doubtful gonna get himself one back on a Wizjak, but it's on the cost of his own life. Extorted, the last one standing, going to try to poke onto these carries, going to try to stop them from demolishing his base, but surely he's not going to be able to accomplish too much here. A dominant fight for Oakland to try to close on out this game and break open the base of the Akuma Katanas.
Soli's going to come back up here, and this will be a little bit of a dicey push if they want to go past this inhibitor, Gordo. Everyone is kind of coming back up, and Mr. Nefarious is definitely quite low. That redemption's going to help, and never mind, it's John's going to take down Extorted.
Just crushes the Ezreal there with that searing charge, knocks him into the air, procs the brittle, takes him out. A huge fight for Oakland, takes 2 inhibitors, gets the unofficial ace as Extorted dies right as the other 4 come back on up. And now they're 8k gold in the lead, Nyarko. They are dominating once again. They are close to getting this to match point.
Yeah, this is a really incredible thing to witness for sure. Oakland Esports have just been making all of the right calls. We saw a little bit of diciness around Baron number 1 for sure, Gordo, but I think that this Baron number 2, where they decided to pivot and just basically got the ace, well, Extorted got out, but not for very long. At the end of the day, I think that this shows that they are now turning and burning with all the gold that they need in order to enact their game plans. This is going to be dragging up in 30 seconds. It will be a big mountain soul over to the side of Oakland Esports, just making themselves all the more tanky. And there's the Encore coming down to charm up the Olaf.
Yeah, and, you know, he didn't have to do that. He pops the Ragnarok right away and chooses to run in instead of out, but he's just going to lose his life in the 1 versus 4 for that. Klexo now trying to kite it on out, getting chased on down by Keelan. That's going to be Extorted, forced on back as well. No Flame going to fall on down to Bello, and that's all she wrote for this game number 2, Nyarko. Oakland Esports, the underdogs in our quarterfinals, with a dominant 2-0 start up against the Akuma Katanas, are going to take us to match point here and threaten to eliminate our number 2 seed here in the quarterfinals.
Threatened to eliminate them with a 3-0 nonetheless. It is already going to be 2 on the board for Oakland Esports. They have been dominating these games. Sure, in game 1, the mistakes came really quickly, and it basically set them on the track for victory real fast. But here in game number 2, it was kind of a similar story, but just drawn out over the course of an extra 10 or 15 minutes. The mistakes still were very present there in Akuma Katana's game plan. They grouped at the wrong times. They got caught out quite a bit. And at the end of the day, Wijek was once again able to run wild alongside Keelan. That duo of the mid and jungle once again tearing up the rift.
Yeah, no, just flipping this mid-jungle matchup on its head this series is Oakland Esports. Klexo and Doubtful, I would have argued as the strongest mid-jungle duo in the AVL prior to this series starting. And Wijek and Keelan have just taken the fight to him time and time again, getting themselves dominant early game starts. Wijek especially finding plays in the bot lane, finding plays in the mid lane to get them ahead. And then they carry it through effortlessly here. The talent made no sense to me. I didn't see the value in having, this AD assassin to round out your draft without a particularly great matchup. And he proves us wrong. He comes on through, he finds the angles, he dominates the team fights, and is now up 2-0. It's been a fantastic series from Oakland Esports so far, showing us a whole new layer to themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I think that maybe looking back on it, one of Keelan's big strengths has been movement priority and just getting to fights really fast here. And perhaps talent is just what kind of assisted him in doing so. He was able to make sure that if any drama happened bot side in that river, Mr. Nefarious and Bello were always going to be backed up. Similarly, it's John and Wijek. If they wanted to take something like a Rift Herald, the talent will be there. So at the end of the day, I think we all learned something. The question is, what else does Oakland Esports have to teach us as we move on into Game 3?
We'll find out in just a few moments. We're going to throw it to another break here, but we're going to be back as soon as we can with game number 3 in the AVL playoffs, where Oakland Esports are now at match point.
Everybody, panic! Hold on! I'm about to say something really cool. 3, 41, 9, and lift off! No one dies screaming without me. I feel like I forgot to shoot something. You're starting to bore me. She's such a loser, always ready to cry. Da-da-da-da. Ah, come on. What's the worst that could happen?
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League quarterfinals, where Oakland Esports are taking the fight to the Akuma Katanas. They are up 2-0 in this series, on the verge of an immense upset to start on off our AVL playoffs. Akuma chooses the blue side once again here to try to fight their way on back.
I don't know what kind of magical hermit Oakland Esports voyaged to, but we are seeing some wizardry coming out of these players here in the quarterfinals, Gordo. 2-0 so far, and they're looking to keep the ball rolling. We're getting some bans coming through, and it looks like a lot of these are going to be adapting to what we see Oakland Esports pull out in these games. Ooh, Akuma Katanas going to go for that Zeri early.
Yeah, they're very happy to just keep these same bans that they showed us last game. The Leona, the Irelia, and the Jinx, just in a slightly different order. The Zeri going to be the lock-on in here from the side of Akuma. They've been the ones to ban out this champion thus far. Now, this time around, they are going to lock it on in for Extorted. This is their last-ditch effort here. They're going to try to put Extorted onto the Zeri and see if this champion can carry them on through. This is going to be another Volibear lock-in for Oakland. A great performance on it in game number 2 from the likes of Wizek. He's going to be happy to take that one a second time.
Don't fix what isn't broken, that's for sure here. I'm really liking this early pickup of the champion. Zeri, though, is someone that I really like matched up against some of these beefier players across the Rift, though. You have the ability to mow down people and remain ever evasive, especially once you pop ultimate. So we'll see what kind of adaptations come through, if any, if Oakland Esports want to look to kind of shut down this bot lane early. Extorted, definitely a power player, definitely has the ability to carry, and we'll see what kind of plays they make.
Yeah, the misfortune stolen away here from Extorted. You know, he's the one that's the big misfortune player in this lobby, but he is not going to get it this time around. As
was that Nasus support?
In. That's Nasus support locked on in. That's Nasus support. That's the counter pick to Zeri. Oakland Esports have been going to church, Nyarko. They are busting this one on out as the Zeri counter pick in this game number 3 to potentially send them to the semifinals.
I cannot wait for this. That is for sure, Gordo. That being said, it is a little bit rough to take this Nasus into Nautilus early on, given the fact that you will probably be going for that Arcane Comet with Inspiration secondary setup. So if you get engaged on, you could still get chunked quite heavily, so that's something to watch out for. But overall, yes, Bello reading the Bible, going to church, grabbing on out the Nasus support to start things for Oakland Esports here, rounding out that first set of selections. We shall see what kind of adaptations come through for Akuma Katanas in return.
Yeah, and, you know, they've got only a couple of picks left to adapt with. They've already selected their bot lane, Yarko. They've selected their top lane as well. I don't know what you can get coming out of the jungle or the mid lane that's going to shut on down support Nasus, but they're going to have to find something real fast here. Presumably this means no Graves mid. That's going to be the opposite of what you want against this Nasus. Presumably you want range. You really want to try to, you know, harass on out this guy who's going to really wither you down, who's going to shred all your armor and MR in a certain area. You want to be able to spread these fights out to be able to respond to that. Aatrox going to be the lock-in the top lane to face off against this Ornn. Akuma, they have to round out their draft here. They have to decide how they're going to respond. 3 big, beefy bruisers over on the side of Oakland, and the need for some range to try to deal with this Nasus. Double marksman up against Nasus. It feels shady to me, Nyarko, but they're going to lock it on in. That's going to be Kindred in the jungle for Doubtful to throw on down the gauntlet what could be one final time here up against Wizek.
Akuma Katanas really need a AP threat with range here in the last selection. That's at least my opinion on it, Gordo. That's just because it is the case that if you have enough AP damage or you get big enough on one of these mage champions, like the Ahri for instance, Nasus can be forced away from going for that Frozen Heart first item. They could be building something a little bit more standard like a Locket of the Iron Solari. In my opinion, that takes Nasus off the game plan of shutting down these marksman carries. So we should see what Bello decides to ultimately build, but there's a lot of really solid answers coming through, not only with this Nasus in hand for Oakland Esports. There's a Cassiopeia going to get locked in right there.
Yeah, gonna shut down some of the mobility that Kindred, gonna shut down some of the mobility that Ahri. I love the counter picks for Oakland Esports coming out here in Game 3. And I think they've stomped this draft, Nyarko. They have such good anti-marksman options up against 2 marksmen. They have such good anti-mobility options up against a team that is nearly entirely mobility-focused characters, minus Ornn, perhaps. And we could say the Nautilus, as my asthma isn't going to stop Dredgeline. And they have just such beefy frontliners in this Aatrox, in this Volibear, in the Nasus too, up against a comp that, unless Kindred really gets rolling, unless Kindred and Ahri get ahead and they actually win this mid-jungle matchup for, the first time this series, they're going to be kind of low damage too. Zeri, she's not that big burst you 100 to 0 champion. She's really mobile and can whittle you down over time, but the damage feels low. I mean, Ahri's not an exceptionally high damage mage either. Kindred can be, but needs to get stacks and needs to get rolling. And she's up against an early game jungler in the form of the Volibear and a couple of losing lanes here with pretty much across the board.
Yeah, for sure. Ornn just will not have the kill pressure into something as aggressive as the Aatrox. Aatrox will be able to get up to that Gorge Rinker relatively quickly here, and while there is definitely a scale threat for the blue team, Akuma Katanas are going to have to do a lot of work in order to get there for champions like the Kindred and Ornn to really pop off. If things go rough early on, which has kind of been the case in the last 2 games, not going to lie, Gordo, I think that Oakland Esports have a good chance at closing this series out.
I certainly agree here. We've been surprised before in this series. Definitely, if you're going to try to pop off on this Kindred and carry through an early game, I feel like Doubtful's the guy to do it. But, has been off his game so far tonight. Has really been shut down very effectively by Wijek and the likes of Oakland Esports. Can see all of the Oakland fans in the Twitch chat coming on through here to support their team. And they should be thrilled with this performance so far tonight. I mean, these guys coming on in through the play-in stage, one of our lower-seeded teams here in the playoffs, up against the number 2 overall team in the Akuma Katanas, and they're slamming it. They're having a fantastic series so far, and they're on the verge of closing this one on out.
I'm sorry I'm losing decorum here, Gordo. I am just so giddy about seeing the comps that OU has drafted. I think one of the things that I'm most impressed by is the fact that they aren't really going for the same exact game plan every game here. This is going to be the 3rd one in which we see a dramatic pivot, a traumatic transition away. Obviously, Nasus, very, very different from that Karma that Bello was on last time here. And while he is ultimately a pretty easy champion to play in this support role, as you aren't even leveling Q until the last possible moment, this is absolutely wild for sure, and it is going to be a brand new thing for Bello to have to cope with.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta believe that you don't really get to play against the Nasus support too often. It's been proposed, right? It's been supported by LS and by the likes of those. It's been played a little bit in some of the ERLs as well. I've gotten to see a couple of games of it over there. But, probably not something that the Akuma Katanas have gotten to scrim with or against very often here. So, going to be an immediate test here of how they can react to this unfamiliar pick in the bottom lane and if they're going to be able to navigate the lane appropriately. And then from there on out, it's just going to be that additional test of not avoiding the outcome that they've experienced in the last 2 games, which is Wijek running away with the early game, getting successful ganks off, setting himself and Keelan ahead, and carrying through that lead through the rest of the game. Akuma's going to have to disrupt that play pattern if they want to get this Kindred rolling and if they want to have an opportunity to fight their way back into this series and to take us to further games.
But I think Doubtful does have the ability to go through into some of these lanes and get some big plays off. The more I look at the bot side of the map, as much as it is exciting to see the MF Nasus duo, it is a lane that really doesn't have a whole lot of kill pressure early, and Zeri and Nautilus are 2 champions that can easily hop in if it is the case that we see Doubtful rotate into that area. In turn, it's also going to be a little bit difficult for Wijek to actually get a gank down, even if it is the case that Zeri not push in, just due to the fact that Zeri's able to hop those walls. Nautilus has that dredge line. So there's a lot to be considered. I think that if we see Oakland Esports, though, escape that laning phase relatively unscathed, that scale threat of the Cassiopeia, the team fighting prowess of the Aatrox, and the ability to shut down some of these big marksmen with that Nasus can easily take them to that victory that we're talking about.
Definitely can here. Excited to watch it hit the Rift here in Nyarko. We're going to throw it to a quick break once again as we get loaded onto the Rift for game number 3 Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with some Nasus support, with some Kindred jungle, and with what could potentially be the final game of the night for Oakland Esports and Akuma Katanas. See you shortly. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast for the Aegis Vanguard League quarterfinals. We are here at match point. Oakland Esports are up 2-0 over the higher-seeded Akuma Katanas. They are one game away from stamping themselves a ticket to the semifinals, from getting themselves into our top four. As Soli gonna try for the level 1, gonna force the flash out of Keelan there. That is going to make this Cassiopeia a little bit more vulnerable. Bello gonna have to play careful here. Throws on down that Spirit Fire to try to chunk him on out, slow him down a little bit. But camping towards Keelan in the mid lane, that's got to be the plan for Doubtful here. Try to get himself in this Ahri ahead.
And getting that early flash is definitely a valuable step forward in making sure that we see a win condition come through for Akuma Katanas. They have the odds stacked against them, frankly, after we saw that draft. And the fact that Keelan actually does have the luxury of playing relatively safe here, they have that cleanse, means that this is definitely Oakland Esports' game to lose, even so early on. We'll have to see how these lanes play out, but right now, it really does look like Oakland has just drafted a fantastic comp to answer all of the means by which Akuma Katanas could get ahead.
Yeah, it's all going to run through Doubtful here. He's going to have to make something happen on this Kindred. It's going to be tough to do, but it's the only option he has available. This Nasus is going to be so effective at shutting down this Zeri. You got to believe that she's not going to be able to accomplish much throughout a huge portion of this game. And, just going to keep our eyes on this bottom lane from here on out. This is the misfortune in that bottom lane. Going to be super strong early on as well. Play out against this Zeri and this Nautilus. Starting top side for both junglers. We'll see if they end up influencing towards this bottom lane.
Yeah, for sure. Kindred also definitely has to just watch out for any possible counter jungling coming through from Wizek while they make their plays. Doubtful is going to have to be cognizant of where those marks spawn, and in turn, I think we're going to have to be seeing the same level of map awareness come through for Oakland Esports, as that could be the opportunity to make some plays.
Definitely could be here. So gonna keep an eye on what our mark spawns look like here for Doubtful. Gonna hope to flip heads on the coin flip here and hope that his Scuttler spawns somewhere where he can take it. Wizek will be also on this bottom side, so if it is the bottom Scuttler, it might actually be tough for him to really contest the bear over that one. Does have a little bit of mid priority, potentially call down Klexo to help on out. Actually solely pushing into the opposing jungler, spots on out the Volibear. They are coming in for this invade, going to try to contest them on this Gromp. Wizek going to be forced to back on off. Oh, actually,
yeah, the ping's coming through.
Here.
Bello coming in.
Yeah, Bello going to have access to that Wither, going to be able to dissuade them at least a little bit. No Flame, and it's John trading back and forth, but Wizek going to be forced to do the recall. This is going to be a bot lane Scuttler going over to Doubtful to start off the game.
I think another person we really have to watch out for in this early game is Soli here, mostly because it is the case that Nasus without kill pressure basically allows for the Nautilus to roam a little bit, and they will be core in ensuring that Doubtful's attempts at plays, specifically mid, will work out. Keelan getting battered a little bit by that W coming through, but Klexo burning flash in order to do so.
Yeah, went for the charm, hit it onto a minion. Keelan not even going to have to blow the cleanse, will stay alive in that middle lane. Doubtful moving up towards the top side, will be able to claim himself this Scuttle Crab at the very least, so he's going to get his first mark of the game. Wizek is in the area. Looks like Doubtful going to try to force a gank in the top lane, but it's John playing it out safe.
Yeah, for the time being, everything is just going to settle down, and honestly, I think that this is what Oakland Esports really wants. They have incredible threats there in the mid lane in the form of Keelan. As long as they stay safe, things are going to be scary. Speaking of which, Doubtful forced to flash away.
Yeah, getting chased down by Wizek, going to go over the wall, but it's going to be met by a flash from Wizek, and Wizek gets first blood, mano-y-mano in the top side river. Dominates the jungle matchup as he has throughout this entire series. It gets the first blood. Now 2v2 in the bottom lane. Bello getting melted on down is going to be the first one to fall on down here. So they do end up getting that kill over to Soli. Mr. Nefarious looking to take the 1 versus 2, but has to be at least a little cognizant of this Nautilus damage. Will end up backing away as Bello ends up giving up the first kill of the bottom lane. And Wizek now getting chased on out. The Ahri is coming through for the collapse. Wizek going to throw on down the shield, going to jump on over, but he's going to get chased by Doubtful, and Doubtful gets the kill right back up and gets them up 2-1 kills for the Akuma Katanas.
Yeah, a little bit greedy by Wizek staying right there, especially due to the fact that Klexo stayed in lane and had a solid amount of roam priority. Cassiopeia is now back, but Keelan, with going that cleanse, gives up the ability to teleport. So that will, in fact, be a kill advantage now over to Akuma Katanas for what feels like the very first time in this series.
Very well might be, because game 1 was no kills for the Akuma Katanas for like 15 minutes until they were already down double-digit kills. And game number 2, pretty close to the same. So I think you're probably right there, Nyarko. This might be the first time all series that Akuma Katanas has had a kill lead, maybe even a gold lead. See what they can manage to do with it here. They did get that kill onto the Kindred. Very likely she marked Wizek as well, so that's going to be a second mark going over to Doubtful too. Gets a little step closer towards that 4-mark point where you increase your range and you get a lot stronger.
Yeah, for sure. It's John taking some pretty aggressive trades. Top side of the map, Keelan forced to flash.
Klexo outplaying in the one-on-one here, going to land the charm and take out Keelan in the one-on-one. Dodges away from the ultimate, turns back to avoid the stun. Now it's John getting taken on in the one-on-one as well. Pops the World Ender, but it doesn't matter. No Flame. Top Brain gets the solo kill, and the Akuma Katanas come alive in game number 3.
This is exactly what they need to do in order to win this game. Akuma Katanas have made some aggressive plays, and it is paying off so far. We'll see what it continues through here as we see the invade come into the bot side jungle of the Oakland Esports team.
It's a 3-on-3 for right now. Bello has already used the Wither, so they decide to back on away. Not much going to be gained by either side here. Just a little bit of vision over to the side of the Akuma Katanas. They look to resume their push to the bottom lane. Extorted, ending up with a CS lead here up against the counter Nasus. Is going to be a little while before Bello really going to have the points in the wither to make her feel that difference.
Yeah, for sure. That being said, right now, the thing to watch out for is the fact that Klexo got that solo kill into Keelan. Keelan is definitely up in CS right now and has the Lost Chapter to sustain through the lane in terms of mana, especially due to the fact that they also went for that tier. But that Ahri is very maneuverable, able to play super well into a lot of the abilities that come out of the Cassiopeia if they position well. If they get the jump, the fight can definitely go in Ahri's favor. But for the time being, I think that Keelan is able to remain relatively confident.
Absolutely here. They are, so far, doing pretty well in this early game. We were concerned about how they were going to be able to navigate following this draft, but kills gained solo in the top and mid lane certainly going to give a little bit of a buffer over to the side of the Akuma Katanas. Early kill over to Doubtful as well, certainly going to be feeling very good for them. Be able to potentially carry on through into the later game. Dragon has now spawned on up. Doesn't look like either side is going to focus on it too much quite yet. Keelan taking another trade in the mid lane. Klexo still appears to be coming out on top.
Yeah, solidly, though, Keelan avoiding that charm right there. That could have been disastrous for the Cassiopeia. They're instead just going to receive that wave and hopefully keep things at parity. Given the fact that both Rift Herald and Drag are up, it'll be interesting to see where Wizek and Doubtful rotate across the map. It sure looks like the Kindred is going to start up that Dragon with the assistance of their bottom lane. But now the question is, will Volibear venture into that area?
Now we will see. They do have a feel. They will know that there's members around here as soon as the dragon goes down, so they're now aware that Kindred is in the area. Keelan getting engaged on by Klexo. Gonna head back into the minion wave. Throws on down the Petrifying Gaze. Doesn't manage to land the stun, but manages to get a good trade there with the Twin Fangs anyway. About even HP for both Klexo and Keelan as they trade ultimates.
Yeah, this will be an interesting lane to watch for that kind of dynamic that we just saw right there. Klexo finished the trade off and was able to turn away from the Petrifying Gaze, and if you are once again able to get that kind of priority over and over, eventually Cassiopeia is going to end out that trade the loser. So Ahri's going to need to continue to do that before the power spikes really come through for that champion, and we shall see in turn how Wizek decides to play out this lane.
Yeah, John and No Flame been going pretty evenly in this top lane ever since that solo kill earlier on. A little bit of a CS lead over to No Flame. Going to be feeling pretty good. Now, Keelan hanging out in the mid lane, getting back in there, going to start pushing back the wave once again. Has reduced his CS lead a little bit as, it's been very tough to play on out here so far. Early advantages to both solo laners from the side of Akuma. Dragon early over to Akuma as well. You expect that the Nasus support will be a more effective counter as the game goes on, but so far hasn't paid off too much as John going to be forced to flash away, has the World Ender ticking, is going to try to get his way on out here through the pit, trying to regroup with Bello. He will be spotted on out by Soli, gets hooked on in, and is now stuck here in the Rift Herald pit. Got a little bit greedy with his recall instead of trying to umbral dash over the wall, and will end up going on down for it. 5th kill over to the Akuma Katanas, and another in Doubtful's pocket.
Yeah, definitely some unfortunate pathing decisions that forced the Aatrox into River. I may have almost preferred if it's John tried to flash back towards the upper wall and just try to make it back to turret in turn, just because that means that Klexo and Soli couldn't have grouped onto him in turn. Volibear going to fight topside, and we have a fight mid as well.
Yeah, Soli getting engaged on here, getting slowed on up by Bello, and Keelan has nowhere really left to go here. That's going to be another Noxious Blast to land, but Klexo going to try to turn it around with 1v2. Keelan, though, avoids the damage, avoids the Orb of Deception, and double kill comes through for Keelan. Great play there on the Cassiopeia, along with some assistance from Bello, as Doubtful trying to turn it back on around, but it looks like they will be able to escape.
That was an incredible decision by Keelan to stay in that fight. They were so low, but they had confidence in their ability to dodge those skill shots. And what that means is that while the gold lead is still in Akuma Katanas' court, I think I might actually prefer the 2-1 Cassiopeia on my team before 11 minutes.
Yeah, going to make a huge difference here. Going to do so much damage, especially as they scale up later on into the game. As this Nasus Wither just becomes more and more effective. Distorted does have the cleanse to be able to move on out of it. We'll probably end up building a Quicksilver Sash as well eventually to deal with it, but in the meanwhile, going to be a little bit tougher to deal with. Wizek has arrived in this bottom side, clearing on out a little bit of vision, netting some power over to the side of Oakland as they push over into this bottom side. So far, though, not much to make happen. 90 seconds to go on the next Dragon. Just farming it up. They're looking for the next team fight. Keelan might be a little bit caught here, though. Gets hit by the dredge line, gets hit by the charm, and it's going to get taken down easily. Now they're chasing onto Bello as well. The depth charge did manage to land, but they got no follow-up. Bello will be able to stay alive under that turret, but the snake goes on down. Will be another kill over to the Akuma Katanas.
Yeah, that was quite far forward for the Cassiopeia, and they were caught out on that far wall. No flash, no summoners up, so that will, in fact, be a kill traded back for Akuma Katanas. They're going to grab that one for sure. Across the map, first items are beginning to come through. Gore Drinker, the standard build on Aatrox for It's John, and meanwhile, they are going to get engaged upon, in fact.
Yeah, John's got nowhere left to go here. Tried to use the Umbral Dash to dodge and out of the Call of the Forge God, gotten hit by the knockup anyway. Wizek stealing away jungle camps, but not able to help on out his top laner, who will drop down to 0 and 3. And Wizek pretty deep behind enemy lines here. Doesn't look like he's going to get spotted or punished, but was definitely a risky maneuver there for a little while. As No Flame going to take some alone time with this turret and get himself some additional plate gold.
Yeah, this is really good to see. The establishing of priority via the pushes mid and top are going to be huge for Akuma Katanas and stabilizing in this game. The advantage is really beginning to come through a lot heavier than I first anticipated. It was a 1k gold lead the last time I crowed about the fact that Keelan had those 2 kills on the Cassiopeia, but now that it's opened up to about 3,000, I'm really starting to think that it is now going to be Oakland Esports who are definitely pressured.
Yeah, setting on up here on to the Dragon. It is going to be Oakland first to the play this time around. Extorted is showing on up on the backside. Has to be conscious of Bello. Dragon will end up going on down. Doubtful is over the wall. This is going to be the channel, the ultimate for Mr. Nefarious, but he's going to have to back away now. Extorted is over the wall, is one-on-one with this Misfortune. Bello coming on in, going to throw on down the Wither, but it might be too little and it might be too late. Klexo gets the damage across onto Bello and is now following up onto Mr. Nefarious. It's a double kill onto the enemy team bottom lane. It's another kill going over to Doubtful as he goes on a rampage and finishes off onto Wizek. The Dragon for 3 kills is not a trade you're going to be happy with, Oakland. That's going to be the Akuma Katanas taking an even firmer grasp of the game.
Yeah, I think that may have been a little bit of miscommunication. It felt like we saw Oakland Esports just divide themselves in that team fight. Bello obviously wants to help out their ADC, so they go over and try to drop the Wither down onto Zeri, but in turn, they leave Wizek alone to take that fight, and they are taken down for it. It's John just going to continue to fight into No Flame top lane on this part of the map. We see Turret go down mid lane as well, and so in turn, Bello and Keelan are just going to have to play this one safe.
They made a big play on a Doubtful there in the mid lane, but couldn't quite get enough damage to take him out. Survived with the Lamb's Respite and was able to make the escape, so no shutdown gold for Keelan this time around. Now 7 kills in the lead are the Akuma Katanas, 6k gold in the lead as well. Fully in the driver's seat and have the chance to try to take us to a game 4 here. A little bit early to call, though. There's still plenty left in the tank here for the side of Oakland to play out the rest of this game.
Yeah, Oakland are going to have to play a little bit more selective in the fights that they want to take now. It is going to be difficult for them to go for 5v5s, even with the counter picks that we saw lined up for them in the draft phase. No Flame top lane has just been holding their own so well here on the top side of the map that the Aatrox really has not gotten the chance to scale or push forward into that first item. So it's going to be worrisome as to whether or not It's John actually will have much of a presence here going forward.
Yeah, it is going to be a worrisome scenario for certain here. Klexo and Doubtful, the ones we've called out throughout this series, have been showing on up here in this game number 3. 7 kills between the two of them, the mid-jungle duo that the Akuma Katanas have ran on all season long, finally coming alive here. The very last moment with their backs up against the wall. Now Will they be able to carry through the rest of this game? They've got the tools now to be able to do it. They've got a substantial gold lead, but they have to hold on to it. John gonna be the next target here. Getting hooked under the turret, Solely tanking up the turret. He's gonna try to trade it back on around. Solely going incredibly low, gonna be forced to flash away, but will be able to stay alive as Extorted is getting dove in the bot lane. It is gonna be a 1-for-1 cross-mapped here. Wijek stays alive after tanking a few turret shots. Klexo gonna try to make it a trade though. Dives forward onto Keelan. Wijek gonna be able to stay alive. There's gonna be Bello throwing on down the Wither to try to turn around the fight back onto the Ari, but it's not going to work on out the turret. Keeps him a little bit too safe. That's gonna be top inner turret falling on down to the Akuma Katanas.
Yeah, Akuma Katanas have a lot of dominance across this map right now. 3 turrets at 17 minutes is an incredibly solid rate, even against a team that might outscale you. That being said, we see Klexa going for some big plays. They do lose their summoner spell in turn for doing so. So this may turn the tide, or at least put a little bit more change into the pockets of Oakland Esports for this next fight. And the fact that Cassiopeia is basically the sole focus of a lot of the gold means that this artillery mage is just going to be doing a whole lot going forward. Definitely some bright spots for sure, but 11-4 is not a scoreline that you want to see.
No, absolutely not here, and the gold lead is huge for Akuma here. His matchup matters a lot less when you have this much of a wall of difference, when you have a whole additional item in some cases over your opponents to really take the fight to them more effectively. And soon, that gold lead is going to be magnified even a little bit more. No Flame top range going to start coming online with those Ornn upgrades as well. Going to start giving even more hidden power over to the side of the Akuma Katanas.
Yeah, for sure it's going to be a matter of just taking some solid plays here in a few moments. I'm looking to see whether or not Oakland Esports is going to deign to contest this dragon that's spawning in about 40 seconds. This is one of those things that you kind of want to get the advantage on, especially given the fact that Akuma Katanas are ahead more broadly across the map. But at the same time, if it is the case that you are going to give up this dragon, this is still more gold being funneled over to Akuma Katanas, who are only going to get scarier. So perhaps this is now the time in which to take the fight. We have a little bit of a power spike for Keelan, who's at 2 items, going for that Saracen Brace, and Everfrost isn't the most damage in the world, but it is at least something.
Flexo taking the fight up against Keelan here. Keelan going to throw on down that Everfrost, slow him on up. But meanwhile, the push in the bottom lane is acceptable and is successful. John trying to hold on out in this bottom lane, trying to stop the push of No Flame, but he has been losing this matchup all game long, and it does not look like it's going to turn around now. Dragon spawned up as well, will get started up by Doubtful and will likely be finished up as well. They're going to try to claim themselves some objective bounties by taking down these outer turrets, but Akuma Katanas completely controlling the pace of this game and dominating across the board.
Yeah, look at how little damage No Flame Top Rain is taking from its John. That is a 2-level difference between those champions, and it's going to force a lot of people to be drawn over to defend the remaining turrets that we see outside of the base of Oakland Esports. A lot of tier 2s have already been wiped off the face of the map, and so things are definitely looking rough for the red side here. There's some ways back into it for sure, but it is going to be mostly whether or not Oakland Esports will capitalize on the mistakes of the Akuma Katanas. And just frankly speaking, this second seed team has not been messing up a whole lot this game.
No, they really have not. They've really looking a little bit more like themselves, I would say. The dominance through the mid and the jungle is really what has defined the Akuma Katanas throughout this entire season. Doubtful and Klexo getting a little bit back on form here. Looked a little shaky there when Wijek got the first blood once again, but Doubtful immediately responds in turn. Klexo gets a nice play in the one-on-one up against Keelan, and just like that, they are right back online. They are performing as we expected them to here in this game number 3. Will they be able to close it out, though? That question still does linger to some degree. There's a lot of counter picks over on the side of Oakland. They have this Nasus and a double marksman. They have this Cassiopeia and all these champions who want to dash around. There are still opportunities to shut it on down.
We see a lot of hovering of Akuma Katanas around this Baron pit. It is 21 minutes into the game, and in this series, that basically indicates that someone is going to start this objective up. I guess we shall see in turn. There is the Eye of the Herald being dropped mid lane once again as a bit of a distraction, and a lot of pings coming through on the top side of the map. This is where the collapse is going to happen.
Flame is behind them now. Great setup to the fight. Here comes the call. The Forge God got a knock up onto Wizjak, who's just trying to stay alive, but is getting melted on through. Throws on down. That Stormbringer, as the lockdown comes through on a Doubtful, he's going to throw on down. That Lamb's Respite to try to keep the rest of his team alive, but two members are incredibly low. Big knock up landed by its John, but it can't be followed up on. Mr. Nefarious flashes over the wall to finish off the kill there on a Doubtful, but he gets melted down in turn. It's a 3-for-1. A big shutdown for sure on a Doubtful, but it's still a fight win for the Akuma Katanas. Will the takedown of the jungler be enough to dissuade this jungle start? It looks like not. Baron going to be started up, extorted, firing over the wall. Keelan is here, though, and knows what's going down. He saw those burst fires being thrown over. He throws down the pink ward. Can he stop this Baron attempt? 1 versus 3. Going to remain to be seen. It is getting called on now. Klexo is lurking. Keelan does have access to the cleanse. They are eventually going to back on off the Baron. They do not want to risk the game here. Keelan will successfully stop the Baron attempt.
That was honestly a really impressive amount of confidence coming through from the Cassiopeia here, making sure that the Baron cannot be taken will provide a little bit of a respite for Oakland Esports, who desperately need one right now. They are so far behind in gold that, as you were saying earlier, Gordo, I don't think these counter matchups are going to be all that valuable. The fact that Aatrox is now 0-5, by the way, just means that one of your big sources of damage that you were really riding on just is not present. And the fact that in turn, Misfortune has only now gotten down to their Eclipse means that the power spikes are just coming through a little bit too late for the red side.
Yep, and the Ornn items are coming on through. This look like the Forge Fire Crest over on the side of No Flame Top Brain. Going to be given that additional tank stats and the Infinity Force. Glad I get to say that one. Coming through quick started.
Alright, just keep flexing your knowledge as long as this champion is selected by one of the two sides. I see how it is, Gordo.
Look, some of them are better than others, and when you get to say Infinity Force,
Infinity Force is really solid.
It's a great one. It's one of the better, for sure.
I mean, I definitely will remember that one from now on. I got that one and Typhoon locked away in my brain. Speaking of locking things away, this is a lot of priority in the mid lane for Akuma Katanas. They got a really solid push going on. They're hoping to crash some waves. They may pivot their way back over to the Baron in turn. We should see what happens here. A lot of pings going down onto Wizjak, who's going to be chased after by Klexo. There's the dashes.
Yeah, Wizjak trying to escape here, has to avoid the charm, will be able to do it, blocks it up with the red buff. Klexo dives back on in, but it's going to get stunned for this. But Doubtful is already there. Doubtful's raining on down the damage and is going to finish off onto his counterpart on the side of Oakland Esports. 5v4 jungler down. Akuma Katana is going to start on up this Baron. They are super close to being able to close this one on out, Nyarko. This is going to be even more of a gold lead. Will be a trade for the Dragon, presumably, but without a jungler, they got to be a little bit careful about that one as well.
Yeah, Nautilus in the area, so he will be able to at least provide vision for the side of the Akuma Katanas. The burst is definitely in full effect, though. It looks like Cassiopeia will clean that drag up, but the push down mid is something to really watch out for. A lot of pressure across the map, slowly trying to stop some of these backs. And all the while, that is an exposed inhibitor. Keelan, though, getting caught out.
Oh, that's a big stun, though, for Keelan. Turning it around on a Doubtful, who's going to be forced to throw down the Lamb's Respite. And Wizjak is going to try to make the trade happen, but he can't do it. Isn't navigating the fight well enough. Finally, Mr. Nefarious is going to be able to take him on down with the help of the double up. Now, moving on through for the rest of the team. They can't deal enough damage to No Flame, though. He's just so strong on this Ornn. Extorted, advancing forward, firing off the blasts over the wall. Finishes off on a Nefarious, dives on over, and finishes off on a Bellow as well as this Nasus counter pick. It just hasn't done anything for the side of Oakland Esports. Triple kill goes over to Extorted, and this is going to be game number 3 going to the side of the Akuma Katanas. We got a series on our hands, Nyarko.
Yeah, finally the Akuma Katanas have awoken here, and they will not go down in this quarterfinal without swinging. Keelan on the far side of the map trying to prevent this Nexus from being taken out, but it is too little too late. Wizjak will just watch in horror as they come back up, and the Nexus falls in turn.
All right, well, it is a big journey back for the side of the Akuma Katanas now. They still have got to win 2 more games in a row to claim this series for themselves, but glad to see that they are at least able to put it together here for this game number 3. A fantastic performance up against Oakland Esports and keeping it competitive here. glad to see that, not getting mentally broken by a rough first couple of games, keeping no worries for the rest of their days. Hakuna Matata. God dang it. I can't say it. It was funny
You were
to
so
me.
close. It was brilliant.
It was
though.
so close to the
It was
perfect
so
execution
good.
of the joke. We're gonna throw it to a break. I'm gonna work on my tongue tying, and we will be right back with game number 4 starting here pretty soon.
Everybody panic! Hold on. I'm about to say something really cool. 3, 41, 9, and lift off! No one dies screaming without me. I feel like I forgot to shoot something. You're starting to bore me. She's such a loser. Always ready to cry. Da-da-da-da. Aw, come on. What's the worst that could happen?
Welcome back, everybody. Short break here as we are back with the Aegis Vanguard League quarterfinals. Oakland Esports back on the blue side here for game number 4. Still at match point up against the Akuma Katanas, who have well fought themselves back in this game number 3. Look at a little bit more how we expected them to coming on into the night. And now with the momentum in their favor, trying to spin this series back around and take us to game number 5.
They got those shakes out for sure here, Gordo. I think that finally they realized, hey, we're the top-ranked team for a reason, or close to the top-ranked team. Let's act like it. No more mistakes. That was a clean stomp, even up against a team comp that we really were calling as a clear victory for Oakland Esports. A lot of counter picks just ended up not mattering as AKM moved as one and won as one. Let's see what happens as adjustments. Obviously, you have to be shaken up a little bit if you're Oakland Esports, but you still have 2 victories in the bag already. You only need 1 more to make it to the semis.
You really do. So Ornn going to be the first pick here for Oakland. We were talking a little bit in the very short break, Nyarko, that we wanted to see a little return to the tank top lanes from It's John, and he clearly agrees. He's going to first pick this Ornn for himself, facing off against Set and Nautilus. It's the first lock-ins for Akuma.
Set has been flexed before. We saw that in game number 1, but it wasn't in the hands of Oakland Esports that time through. I would imagine this is going to be a much more standard Set top lane, and we'll just see how It's John will handle this fight up against No Flame top brain. Across the map, though, there's a lot of really interesting things to continue to contest here. Oakland Esports hovering that Renata Glass, and it will, in fact, be the lock-in for Bello.
Right, this was banned away in game number 1 by Akuma and has been kind of sliding on through these picks and bans ever since then. Now going to be locked on in for Oakland. Another interesting support to come on through. You know, they showed us the Nasus last game. This time they're going to show us the Renata Glass. Feels like a good matchup against the Set in particular because, you know, he gets more auto attacks out per second. So if you can make everybody hit each other, probably better to be having the Set on the other side. And swinging out those fists at their teammates. The Zig is going to be the lock-in as well. It's worked out super well back in game number 2 for Mr. Nefarious. So he's going to run it back this time around.
Who in that Silas lock-in as a response to Renata being able to get hostile takeover for your team will be a huge boon for Akuma Katanas. And we've been seeing the Silas leveraged a lot in these kinds of situations. If you have a Seraphine on the enemy team, if you have a Renata, things of that nature, very often you see this former prisoner get locked on in.
Locked up and locked in. It'll be the Silas this time around. And yeah, a great suite of ultimates to steal away. The hostile takeover, the call of the Forge God, Mega Inferno Bomb, nothing to scoff at either. You're building full AP. You can at least match what the Ziggs is going to be able to do on that one. Feels very good here to be locked on in by Klexo. See what the response is, though. You don't know who your lane opponent in the mid lane is going to be quite yet. And there are some that can fare fairly well up against the Silas. They are going to ban away a couple in the form of the Akshan and that Talon that we saw have so much success for Keelan back in game number 2. But not going to be available. We'll see what they go for instead. The Zaya going to be locked on into pair up with this Nautilus. The Alawi? The Alawi bit?
Okay, yeah, I've seen the Happy Chime Noises video, Gordo. I don't really know how it fares against the Silas, but clearly Keelan thinks that there's something here. We've seen some funky picks before, and they proved us wrong with that Talon. So we shall see whether or not popping out this champion is going to be the answer to bringing through the third victory and closing out the series for Oakland Esports.
And the Kane, too, sure. Throw them all in there, Oakland Esports. These guys, these drafts have been bananas tonight.
Solo queue, baby!
I know, and what's crazy is their wins haven't even been on the really wild drafts. Their wins have been on the, like, slightly more traditional drafts. Like, yeah, the Talon mid was an interesting one that we haven't seen in a while, but it's not a Lowy. At least it was, like, you know, designed as a mid laner. Akuma, though, they're going to take that Kindred once again. They like how it felt for Doubtful to take it a game number 1. Now they're up against another scaling champion. So not like the Volibear, not really going to be able to abuse this Kindred as much early on. I like this as a Kindred game a lot more, and they're going to lock it on in here.
Yeah, Doubtful really showed out basically being the win condition here alongside Klexo in game number 3. So I'm happy to see it return in a little bit more favorable of circumstances, in fact, for Akuma Katanas. I actually think that's coming out of these champion selections that Renata has been pinched pretty darn effectively by AKM. Oakland Esports are going to have to protect this relatively squishy support. In lane, they could easily get Dredge lined and die. In team fights, they could easily get Silas ulted, get the hostile takeover dropped on themselves, and die to their own champions. You know, it's going to be definitely a little bit of a struggle for Bello to leverage this choice into something really effective for OU, but in the past they have shown themselves confident in their ability to play out some of these pretty crazy team comps, and we shall see what exactly goes down here. I guess at the end of the day, it could be an Ornn mid, but I would imagine that as things stand, it will in fact be Alawi going to Keelan.
Yeah, it does appear to be. It's John going to lock on in the Ornn. Face off up against this Silas. Does do fairly well in the one-on-one, you've got to believe. The Silas also a little bit handicapped in the early game with not having a great ulti to steal. Leap of Faith, really not what you want to be stealing away as the Silas, because you know, you're going to throw it on down, you're going to do the damage in an AoE, you're going to spawn a bunch of tentacles, and then you don't have Test of Spirit, you don't have Harsh Lesson, you can't make the tentacles slam again. So they kind of just sit there and they watch you. So the Silas tentacles definitely not the look that you're hoping for. The rest of the ultimates, a great suite, a great toolbox to steal away from for Klexo. The Alawi, definitely not, though.
Yeah, so perhaps that is the sole reason why Keelan decided to go for this champion mid, but it could also just be due to the fact that they are just happy with this selection as a comfort pick. A lot of things to be answered for sure. I also saw a Vanderroll video, I think a while back, about Alawi being kind of weird and having some shenanigans here in at 12.5. I don't know if that is still the case or if Keelan's looking to leverage that fact, but I think that they're going to be playing it pretty above the board overall.
Yeah, I mean, Alawi's got a whole bunch of weirdness about her, as a lot of champions that haven't gotten a lot of time in the spotlight often do. Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one to watch here. Also, Wizjak on the Kane, he's got a good track record of getting ahead early in these games. Even last game, he did get the first blood solo against Doubtful. we'll be hoping to do that again on this Kane. We'll certainly skyrocket that Shadow Assassin a little bit faster, regardless of what form he ends up going for. The sooner he can get it, the stronger he's going to be, the more force he's going to bring into these team fights, and he's hopefully going to get that upgrade before Doubtful gets the 4 marks, gets the range advantage. So Wizjack can get to be a effective champion before Doubtful does. Doubtful, of course, hoping for the opposite here, to be able to run away with it on the Kindred. So a couple of really snowbally junglers makes this early game super interesting to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that a Wizjack is actually pretty flexible in going for either red or blue forms. Given the fact that you have the presence of the Ornn and allow you to act as a front line, you don't necessarily have to go tanky here. If it is the case that you get ahead and you get some solid kills down onto Kindred and Xayah and the like, you can easily be the assassin that is able to stick on to do champions like the Xayah even after their ultimate comes out, which in turn could be the ticket to victory here for Oakland Esports. They definitely need to shape up a little bit. We saw how powerful they can be once they get ahead, but at the same time, a bit of overconfidence in game number 3 definitely cost them and put Akuma Katanas back on the board.
Yeah, definitely did it cost them a little bit there. You know, they had some of the early leads. They ended up throwing them away. They didn't navigate with the NASA support too effectively. And solo kills for both solo lanes definitely started off that lead as well. That's why I like this look coming on through here. I like the counter pick in mid here for the side of Oakland once again. I like the Ornn in the top lane as that safe top laner to face off against the set. You know, we'll probably have a much easier time than they did as the Aatrox up against this Ornn, and can look to, you know, play out their game plan through mid jungle the way that they did previously. I have no idea how this Alawi is going to work out, but I trust that it's been practiced and they feel like it's a good matchup for themselves.
I mean, Keelan could also just go rogue. Who knows? We always have surprises here in the Aegis Vanguard League. That is for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's probably a decent matchup. Sylas does thrive oftentimes against some of these other squishier mages. You have a really solid engage potential. And also the fact that you are going to be stunted in your power spike as long as that mid lane remains a 1v1 situation, due to the fact that you have a pretty bad ultimate to steal away. Things could come out on top early, and Alawi with kills, with gold, definitely is a monster.
Absolutely. Here, the Akuma Katanas gonna have to steel themselves here to try to keep their run alive, try to make the reverse sweep happen. We're going to throw it to a quick break here soon to see if they are going to be able to do just that. Hakuna Matata, Akuma Katanas, say that 5 times fast. We are going to throw it to our last break here, or maybe not our last break, actually. This is not Game 5 quite yet, but we're going to throw it to a break, and we're going to be right back out of the Rift in just a few short moments. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League Quarterfinals. We're here for Game 4. Oakland Esports on the blue side leads 2-1 over the Akuma Katanas. Akuma came in heavily favored tonight, dropped 2 games right off the bat, not even particularly close. Now, after a great Game 3, are looking to fight their way back through the rest of this series. It's John, all alone up here, up against potentially 5 members of Akuma. He's going to have to flash away here, as he will be able to get himself over that wall. But flash down topside, that's a win, for the side of Akuma.
Maybe not as valuable as the fact that we saw Flash come through for Keelan last game after a similar play was made by the Akuma Katanas, but still at the end of the day, getting that summoner spell for basically free is always a fantastic thing to start the game off with. It looks like Bello is going to use this opportunity to get some bot side vision of that jungle, just to see if that blue buff will be taken early on. But I think that for the time being, it is going to be doubtful reapproaching that top side of the map. They're going to start top and work their way back down to try to pressure Mr. Nefarious and Bello on the first rotation.
Is the intent here. No Flame going to give a leash to his jungler here, so it's John going to have a little bit of alone time with the wave to start things on off. Wave crashing on in. He's just going to continue to wait there. He wants to try to see where No Flame exactly is. Probably predict that this has been a red side start from how late that's going to be the lane.
Yeah, for sure. You also do have that ward bot side of the map. So overall, a lot of security for both sides to kind of know where the jungler is early on, as we also see the blue buff standing tall for the Oakland Esports as well. That is going to be information that will be pretty darn valuable for Doubtful and company, and it will determine whether or not we see something like a bit of counter jungling early on. I would like to see maybe an invade actually from the Kindred.
Yeah, I believe I would as well. Potential try to make a move for a couple of those marks is not going to be as worried as they would be up against something like a Volibear. Can maybe escape from the Kayn a little bit more effectively, especially Conqueror Kayn instead of Electrocute Kayn, so not quite as much of an assassin as he would be otherwise. And gonna have my eyes on this mid lane as well. Keelan has the little level lead here and is continuously throwing down with Klexo.
Well, that's a good
manages to get the Test of Spirit. That's going to be very good as well. Got to be real careful up against the Alawi, Nyarko. As she snags that onto you, you're just going to take a whole bunch of damage. It's kind of like a pseudo-hook champion in that way. It's a lot. It feels very similar to being Blitzcrank or Nautilus hooked when you get your soul sucked out like that.
Yeah, for sure. I know everyone says just walk away, but it is not fun to spend a lot of seconds in tentacle time. That is for sure. And right now, Killen definitely pretty confident on the champion, picking up quite a bit. I think right now we may be getting a little bit of a bug with the... Oh, there we go. Thank you so much, Sim, on production, just making sure everything runs smoothly. There is the CS between those two laners. I thought maybe it was going to be a bit more of a gap in favor of Alawi, just due to the priority that we saw. But at the end of the day, things are remaining relatively even on either side, if not Klexo getting actually a little bit of an advantage.
The alternative to that being a bug would be everybody's just missed every CS for the entire game. It would be pretty nuts here. There's a 3-man gank coming in through here onto Keelan. Alawi does thrive in these 1 versus many scenarios, but not until she gets level 6. She's going to be forced to flash away here. Doubtful going to look for the chase on down. Has managed to land that mounting dread, but won't be able to dash in to close the gap. Keelan expends the flash, but does manage to stay alive. Keelan now going to be trying to catch on up this wave. Has to be careful, though. All 3 members are still here. No more tentacles left. We'll get a little bit of regen left from the tentacle slams, but has to be very careful. Calling out over Wijek. 2v3. Still not looking too plentiful in their favor. They are going to eventually back on away.
Yeah, that was a really solid rotation coming through. Soli basically saw how heavily pressured the bot side of the map was for Mr. Nefarious and Bello, and elected to use that free time to come mid, force the flash out of Keelan, and just kind of tamp down on the threat that Alawi poses, at least for a little bit longer.
Yeah, well, he is going to a little harsh on Keelan's mellow there, make it a little tough to really play on through the rest of the laning phase, but still pretty even in CS. Gonna recall, gonna pick up the Sheen. I'm gonna regroup up into the mid lane there. Slowly returning to lane to back on up Extorted. John doing a just fine job in the top lane this time around, although No Flame gonna try to make a little trade happen. Nice immune there on the face breaker using that Bellows Breath.
Yeah, really solid play from It's John. I think he knew No Flame Top Rain was in the area waiting in that bush. We saw the wavering around, and in turn that just allowed for him to prep mentally, got a really, really solid unstoppable going to prevent the face breaker from doing a whole lot. But in turn, Akuma Katanas are going to continue to push the map as this big death ball group of 3 comes through. They're going to take this early dragon and hopefully equalize that gold lead that was beginning to build, at least in the few hundreds, over to the side of Oakland Esports.
Yeah, and the CS cost of that gank mid really showing itself here. That's not a bug. That's just Wizek having double the CS of what Doubtful's put together so far. Not going to get him to the transformation any faster, but it's certainly going to give him an itemization advantage. If he can carry that through the rest of the way, going to be huge for him. He also is the first one on to that Scuttlecraft that the market spawned on, so it's going to snag away another mark from Doubtful, continuing to prevent him from getting some of those early stacks.
Yeah, that's definitely where a lot of the advantages currently lie with Oakland Esports. That's where the gold lead is coming from. But overall, I still think that we're seeing a pretty commanding presence from Akuma Katanas across the map. That being said, some drama topside. The trades coming through. Doubtful walking up to Wizek, who does have a level lead. But with Klexo in the area, it's a little bit difficult to start up any kind of fight.
Yeah, definitely a lot of self-control there to not end up using the Umbral Trespass, going for the all-in, trying to finish off onto Doubtful. Feel like I would have there, and I very well may have died for it.
Yeah,
but
you would have been walked under tower by...
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens in these scenarios, but it just feels you really want to kill the Kindred. It's your Kane instincts. As Doubtful is now chasing Wizek down. Wizek has no real backup here. He's going to try to make it back over there. That's going to be slowly accidentally hooking right into the wall. Is not going to have the dredge line available now. Keelan is looking to regroup, has that leap of faith, throws it on down, and is now trying to take the fight. No Flame Top Rain comes on through. That's going to be first blood, though, picked up for Klexo. He is going to get traded back on, and it's going to be twofold as Doubtful falls on down. John is regrouped for the rest of the fight. Lee heading on out for the hills, but is going to get taken on down. Keelan gets the double kill. One goes over to John, and first blood is onto Wizek, but he is willing to sacrifice that for the 3-for-1 play all day, every day.
Sound the Orn Horn, it's tentacle time. Keelan got the kills that they need early on, and now this is going to be one scary tentacle lady mid lane. We should see what Oakland Esports will translate this lead into, but for the time being, I really think that Akuma Katana is going to have to slow their roll a little bit, but in turn, Wizek, if you do that, and if you tamp down on the pace of the game, Wizek's just going to continue to farm up and get ahead.
Keelan flexing his Tenta skills right there. Gets himself a double kill, gets an assist on over to Wizek as well, which will get him a little closer to that transformation. Maybe snags a couple of souls, be able to work his way on towards the transformation of choice. Feels like either could be viable this time. I would like the Darken form. I think a little bit better would give you a good setup to be a nice bruisery front line with your Alawi. But, no shame in going for a little bit heavier damage, knowing that you already have the Ornn and the Alawi representing your front line as well.
We do see the Iron Spike whip in Caulfield's Warhammer early, so this basically signals to me that we're going to, in fact, be getting Red Cane with the Gore Drinker early. But as you said, there's always pivot time, and I think that going for heavy damage could be valuable, especially as Mr. Nefarious just hasn't been able to get super far ahead or super advantageous early on in this bot lane. So far, they were just basically farming up and trying to stay at parity with Extorted.
John and No Flame trading over here, but this time John has himself a little bit of a level advantage. That's going to get zeroed out right away here. But one kill at his back with the Warden's Mail already completed. He's feeling very safe in this top lane, much safer than last game. Going to shove on this wave. Going to look to regroup for a potential startup of the Rift Herald here. Meanwhile, Doubtful looking bot lane.
Yeah, this is the potential for a big collapse. Ziggs is very squishy. Mr. Nefarious really doesn't have much self-peel beyond that package bomb, so it could be the case that a dive does come through. Ultimately, Doubtful, though, just going to back in a bush. Meanwhile, Klexo, once again in tentacle time, a little bit of trouble right there as we see a turret plate fall to the Alawi.
Yeah, landed another test of spirit there. Gets a big fat slow. Gets a couple of bits of damage on there that Klexo can't really effectively respond to. You know, this isn't old release Alawi. You can't shorten the duration by fighting her. So this is going to be a big opportunity here, potentially, for No Flame to turn it on around. John manages to get the reset on the ultimate, trying to take the trade, but just can't get it in time. The health regen there for the pit crate is just a little bit too much. And now Wizek getting chased on down. Keelan gets himself that solo kill as Wizek turns it around and gets a solo kill of his own.
Wow,
Turning
I
it
cannot
back
believe
around
that
here,
worked.
up against Doubtful is now No Flame, keeps it going. Wishak trying to stay alive, dives away from that haymaker, keeping it going. Gonna go for the blades reach soon, but he just walks back into the bush and gets punched in the face. 2 for 2. All in all, huge solo kill there in the mid lane for Keelan. Huge solo kill for Wizek as well, as Keelan is now getting collapsed onto solely. Dives on forward into the 1 versus 2. That's just going to be the leap of faith thrown on down, and Keelan with the faster speed on the tentacles gets the kill there up against Solely and sustains through it for Klexo. Double kill goes to Keelan, 5-0-0 on the Alawi. Keelan popping off.
You know, sometimes in Silver, I get an Alawi against me, and I was just watching horror as they go up like 5 kills early on. It looks like Doubtful is going to be able to catch this up, right? Okay, okay. But this is certainly feeling like a scary game for Akuma Katanas. I apologize, I'm losing decorum once again here, Gordo, but Alawi is just so funny.
Oh my goodness. 5 kills over to Keelan here.
This
He's
is what
huge.
happens.
He's got himself a Divine Sunder. He's well equipped to be able to carry this game. Bot lane has been completely quiet throughout the rest of the game. The supports have come on out elsewhere. Mr. Nefarious and Extorted, though, pretty much just going head-to-head, continuing to farm up against each other here. One Dragon going over to the side of Akuma. They're going to look to get themselves another one. Rift Herald gets thrown in the mid lane, though. As Mr. Nefarious and Extorted, they heard me talking, and they look like they want to go for the one-on-one. Nefarious goes very low, but he will be able to stay alive. Clears on out the wave with the Mega Inferno Bomb, and is just going to have to retreat away here as he uses the bouncing bombs to clear on out the rest of the wave. Mid lane turret going to fall on down off the back of that Rift Herald, as now it looks like it's the side of Oakland. They want to turn themselves around in the Dragon game. They want to tie it up at 1-1. They're going to start on up this Cloud.
And I think they definitely have the ability to do so with those champions in the area. We do have Ornn rotating back up towards the top side of the map to catch these waves being pushed in. And Set is also a relatively scary champion. No Flame top brain's real matchup here is actually going to be against the Alawi, especially once we move out of laning phase. And so the question is, can he grab enough gold back in this relatively passive matchup against It's John in order to match to the split push potential that comes through from Keelan?
That is the question. It is going to be the Divine Sunderer and not the Gore Drinker Alawi. So, a little bit more set up for that one-on-one, it feels like, to be able to play up against this set. But also still super powerful in the team fights, you know, of course, with that Leap of Faith, with all of the damage that she's going to be able to do with those tentacles. It's already shown it on off once. Certainly going to try to again. And meanwhile, in the one-on-one up against Klexo, has just been dominant. Has picked up kill after kill. And surely Klexo just can't even stand up to fight anymore.
Yeah, and this is a really solid shutdown of a champion that's similar to the Alawi, can also just pop off with early gold and early kills. Klexo, unfortunately, just has not been able to get their presence known. Keelan really with a solid counter pick, it looks like. We see the hooks come in for the Silas, but he's going to have to run his way back to tower as we see Wizek and Bello show themselves.
Continuing to try to bully onto Klexo, continuing to try to shut on down this Silas. Mr. Nefarious is going to find himself in a 1 versus 3 dive here. Coming on through, no response really available. Throws out the Mega Inferno Bomb, gets a fair bit of damage on a Doubtful. The last turret shot not going to come on through, not even going to force out the Lamb's Respite there from the Akuma jungler. He just claims the kill in the drive-by and heads on out while the wave crashes into the turret.
Yeah, unfortunately, Bello just hasn't really had much of a presence bot side of the map and has therefore deferred to roaming, and what that leads to in turn is an often isolated Mr. Nefarious. He has stayed relatively stable throughout this laning phase, but eventually things will catch up to you and you will get dove, and we see it come through right there. Doubtful, definitely still behind on CS versus Wizek, but with 2 kills under their belt and that Noon Quiver build, they're going to look to finally start to scale back up again and hopefully become a real presence.
Yeah, and still no transformation available for Wizek either, has just not been able to hit champions often enough to really get over those points that he needs. So, Going to still be farming it on up. Going to go for the recall here. Gore Drinker is complete, as I think he's recalling because he's got the transformation. But looks like no, actually. He's still coming out. It's plain old normal Kane. Bello going into the bottom lane. Going to have that hostile takeover dodged away from by Extorted. Keelan not going to be able to land the Test of Spirit either. Going to be a nice escape out for Extorted there in the 1 versus 2.
Yeah, Extorted not really having to burn much in the way of resources in order to survive that engage. Obviously, ultimate is gone, but at the end of the day, that is what it is used for. Those are the kinds of plays you want to make with that, if not going for kills, at least making sure that you get out alive with that ability to go intangible. And Wisek maybe caught out a bit here solely with Doubtful in the area.
Yeah, is in that red form, so he's going to get a little bit of extra health back as he starts landing on these abilities. Meanwhile, Keelan in the bottom lane all alone, going to rip through this turret pretty quickly here, get a little bit of additional gold into his own pocket as well as into the team's. They're just going to try to play to survive here, giving on up that Rift Herald likely. Wijek feeling safe, feeling very secure, knowing that he can go and hide out in those walls whenever he needs to. Plexo and Keelan going on at it in the bottom lane. Plexo gets a good trade on in. That's going to be that ultimate thrown on down, though. Plexo goes so low. Flash in. Keelan gets the solo kill once again. Just too strong on this Alawi.
And what I was going to say is that there are still a lot of things being pulled through for Akuma Katanas here. They managed to grab the Rift Herald off of the split push. So with Alawi holding so much of the gold for Oakland Esports, they are going to lose priority elsewhere on the map as long as Alawi is able to get matched. But Klexo just unable to go for the 1v1 now. So unfortunately, Akuma Katanas are going to have to devote a little bit more brain power and a little bit more effort to catching out this champion. That being said, at the end of the day, for the time being, that trade could have gone worse. They still got their neutral objective out of the whole ordeal, and they're remaining within 2,000 gold of Oakland Esports.
Yeah, for sure. Here you come at the king, you best not miss. And Klexo does miss there. Keelan is certainly the king as of this game. Has got 6 kills to his name now. Was 5 even before. And now going to be grouping on up for this dragon. You know, the beauty of the Alawi when you get her ahead is that she is a fantastic side laner in the one-on-one, but she's also a fantastic team fighter with the Test of Spirit, going to be able to land on down that Test of Spirit, throws it on down. Leap of Faith going to be available here soon. Soli already so low, has nowhere left to go. There's going to be the Berserk thrown down on multiple targets. They're all grouping up on top of the Lamb's Respite, but that's not going to last forever, and it's going to go away right now. Keelan with the tentacle slams. 3 kills already picked up over off the bat, and that's going to be Extorted focused on down right next after. 4 kills, 4-1. Keelan does lose his life, does give over that shutdown, but it is certainly going to be worth it for Oakland Esports as they get themselves 4 kills in the Dragon.
You know, Keelan can pick whatever they want. Bring a ham sandwich to mid lane. I do not care. I have my faith in them to play out whatever in the world comes to the table. Allowing mid, the answer apparently to Klexo's Silas. And overall, they have just catapulted Oakland Esports into a pretty dominating position here. They're going to grab a second dragon, and they are going to move up further and further with this gold advantage.
For sure here. 8-2-1 now, with the Death Stance completed, going to be even tougher to kill. That was pre-Death Stance Alawi in that last team fight, by the way. Sustaining through so much, but finally able to be melted on down. That tool not going to be nearly as accessible in the future. John continuing to play up against a no-flame top lane, but does his job in that last team fight. Now, the first of what they hope to be many dragons in their pockets here. That's a nice pick there onto Soli, and with Keelan here, where do you even go, Nautilus? You're just going to get melted on through. You get a huge slow on top of you there from that Test of Spirit. Trying to run away, trying to dredge line on out. Mega Inferno Bomb comes on through. Wijek flashes on in. Is just looking to pick up onto anybody he can now. And Doubtful is going to be the selection. Umbral Trespass to trace on down. Wijek picks up that kill. Now a 5v4 on the map. Ping's coming on down out of the Baron. It's not going to be up for 30 seconds. But once again, a big advantage here for Oakland Esports to take whatever they want on this side of the jungle.
Yeah, this is a situation where as Akuma Katanas, you really have to recollect and reconsider what your options are. Remember, this is them teetering on the brink of elimination here from the Aegis Vanguard League. They will be dropped out in quarterfinals if they aren't able to find a victory against this monstrous Alawi. And this isn't even to speak of the fact that so many other champions are finally being able to scale up. Ornn 2, 1, and 4. Wijek getting some kills under the belt as well. And that is a Leandries alongside a Hextech Alternator built up for Mr. Nefarious. So he's also not going to be lacking for damage. Right now, I think that you have to try to either get a solid contestation of maybe a bit of an over-eager Baron from Oakland Esports, or otherwise, you got to resort back to going for picks once more. And I don't think that the Alawi is the one in which you're able to do that against.
No, very possibly not. It's going to be very tough to pick this Alawi. Because she just gets so strong in those 1 versus many scenarios, can just make more tentacles, can be even more difficult to take down, and then gives an opportunity for them to start off this fight. And they have such reliable engage as well. Over on the side of Oakland, they have themselves this Ornn, they have themselves this Kayn. We'll just be able to chase on through. Turret does go down to the bottom lane to get a little bit of gold back for the side of Doubtful.
Doubtful is on that Kraken Slayer, which will help a little bit into some of these big, important matchups. Doubtful going in, and there looks like they're starting to aggro out that Baron outside of the vision of Oakland Esports. This is a risky play, but this could be their ticket back in. If, in fact, we see Doubtful able to sustain their way out, they're going to have to tumble through, though, over the wall. They don't have the ability to finish off this big purple worm.
I smell some desperation in the air, Nyarko, as
yeah.
An attempted Baron that cannot be done, as they do not have the sustain or the health to be able to do it. Doesn't look good for the side of the Akuma Katanas when it's getting to this point. They are going to be forced to back away there. This is going to be another pick onto Soli. Ooh, they tried to do a little synergy there. They tried to have Bello move him into Wijek's Blade's Reach. Didn't end up working on out. So, will be an escape for Soli this time.
It felt like maybe Bello held the Q a little bit too long without going for the flick towards the rest of their team. So I think that in turn will just kind of allow for... Oh my gosh!
Base checking in here, but going to throw on down the hostile takeover and be able to flash on out. No Flame trying to chase it on down. Gets a big haymaker, but it doesn't land on anybody. Mr. Nefarious going to jump over the walls. Now the next target is going to be John. He's going to get locked on down, but No Flame is taking a whole bunch of damage on the backside. Call the Forge God comes on through, stolen away by Klexo to try to finish on off onto this Ornn. It is going to be successful. Wijek is here on the other side, but their main carry, Keelan, is not here quite yet. Wijek looking to chase them on down, but they're all 5 grouped together. There's no opportunity to spring the trap. Instead, they're just going to try to force it down mid lane, knowing that multiple health bars are low.
That is a really solid play by Akuma Katanas. They read that the Alawi is bot side of the map, so they posture pretty aggressively around Baron Pit. And honestly, like we said before, so much of that gold is truncated across the rest of the team in favor of the Alawi that things are far more even and far more winnable.
Teleport from No Flame now finds himself in a 1 versus 3 scenario. It is going to be Wijek diving back on in, getting onto Doubtful, going for the Umbral Chest Press, trying to chunk him out lower and lower. Is now going to find himself in a 1v3 for himself. Not going to be able to stay alive, but flash over the wall from Keelan. He throws down the Leap of Faith, is getting plenty of tentacle slams on across on everybody, but the Lamb's Respite is going to keep them alive for the time being. Umbral Trespass from Klexo to try to stay alive. Dives back on in with the Abduct. There is going to be the Mega Inferno Bomb. Keelan going to be able to finish off that kill onto Klexo. Now chasing down onto Extorted and Doubtful. The 2 marksmen trying their best to stay alive. There's going to be the Test of Spirit landed onto Extorted. He's going to have to head for the hills, and he's going to have to be careful of those tentacles. Will just be 1 kill for either side, though. Wijek goes down, Klexo goes down, but Dragon going to be started on up here by the side of Oakland, jungler or no jungler.
A whole lot of drama, a whole lot of Gordo's breath expended, only for a 1-for-1, but the priority is what is the name of the game here. Oakland Esports able to travel their way down. They're going to pick up a dragon here, and in turn, Akuma Katanas are going to rotate over topside of the map. Pings are coming down around the Baron. It'll be interesting to see how they leverage this movement from Oakland Esports to their advantage.
John is so tanky, by the way, there, too. He was the one getting caught to start on off that whole sequence of events. He just stays alive for so long. Klexo steals away Call of the Forge God. They're chasing him down with this set damage, with this Kindred damage. They use the Showstopper on him, too, and he just survives through it all for so long. Almost making a turnaround happen. Doesn't quite work on out that way. John going to take a fair bit of damage from this Baron here, but feeling just fine. Shrug it on off. Has the Thimble Winter completed as well. And can just itemize primarily for armor here. Klexo is the only real source of magic damage, and if he's dumping his combo into the Ornn, something is going horribly wrong.
One of the biggest symmetries that I want to point out in terms of team fights is the fact that while Doubtful used Lamb's Respite in the last fight alongside the Leap of Faith from Keelan, Keelan already has their ultimate back up. And one of the big things that saved Akuma Katanas is just not going to be present as we see Oakland
big
Esports start the Baron up.
Going to force him into those feathers, flying on out, trying to stay alive there with that the defense. But now here it comes. Call the Forge God, met in turn. Going to be numbed over the walls. Now he's going to be Doubtful looking for the steal, but can't get it. No Lamb's Respite, no life left alive, and no Baron either, as that one's going to go on over to the side of Oakland Esports. 5 versus 4 on the map. Baron at their backs. Wizak is chasing onto No Flame, going to just try to slow him on down to give more time for his team to be able to push. Chunking out this set lower and lower. Maybe even going to look for the kill here. Dives back out under the turret. Gets himself showstopper to the wall. 2 members now dealing with him as he goes to the Umbral Trespass. He is going to be able to finish off that kill in the one-on-one. The sustain is just too much. He's going to keep the fight going on to Klexo. He's feeling himself here. This might have been a mistake, though. He will end up going on down, but his teammates are pushing in the base. They've already taken down the mid inhibitor, and they're going to start onto the Nexus turrets. The last Nexus turrets that are ever going to be available for the Akuma Katanas. This is their final game to try to fight it on back. Klexo completes the recall and does get a kill onto Bello, who resurrects himself, but he's not going to be able to survive thanks to the bailout. Now John, very low here, might be the next target. Keelan manages to land a nice test of Spirit. Doubtful going to be forced to use the Lamb's Respite to stay alive, but steps out of it as Keelan goes on a killing spree, finishing off the hit of one more tentacle. Extorted, incredibly low here as well. They do still have these digs. They have the ability to execute on down these turrets. Extorted, going incredibly low. They are going to be able to finish on off another turret. They are going to be able to finish off onto Extorted as well. The bombs, they just never seem to miss. John, full HP, teleporting back on into the base. Klexo is back as well at full HP. He steals away the call. The Forge God throws it on down to Mr. Nefarious, who's going to be forced to flash away. John taking a one-on-one up against Soli, and he's winning it so hard. Soli going to have to head back out under that Nexus. Going to have to hide in the fountain, but it's going to be top grade falling on down as it fights the speed all over here in Yargo. Mr. Nefarious has the passive auto attacks. He's strong enough to tear on down the Nexus, and in a massive upset, Oakland Esports 3-1 over the Akuma Katanas.
What a display of power and skill from Oakland Esports. They came in as the underdog and they dominated these games, Gordo. There was one little slip up there in round number 3, but they recollected and came back with a vengeance here. That Alawi sealing the deal. Oakland Esports are going to be moving on to the semifinals over the clear favorites.
A fantastic series there from Oakland Esports. Huge props to Wizak. Huge props to Keelan as well. Fantastic play from both of them. Fantastic play from the whole team, of course, but so many of these games running through the mid-jungle here, and Keelan really showing up here in this final game. 10-2-3 on the Alawi counterpick. A crazy Talon game earlier in the night as well. Just unbeatable, seemingly, tonight, and we'll be facing off next week up against Glacial Esports Yellow, who have already secured themselves a spot in the semifinals. That is where this portion of the bracket will lead them to. And the Akuma Katanas going to be eliminated here in the quarterfinals.
And you have to think about just how many champions Oakland Esports pulled out here in this series, Gordo, that they just didn't play during the regular season. We saw some incredible pivots and incredible counter picks from all sides. And sure, not all of them worked out all that well. We saw the NASA support definitely lag behind a bit. But when you're popping off on Alawi mid, I think that we are seeing Oakland Esports making a statement that they intend to go all the way. They are in semifinals, but they want to take down Glacial Esports Yellow as well. And I am going to be watching them with rapt interest. That is such an exciting set of players for sure that are standing tall for Oakland.
Yeah, I mean, and this surely proves that they have the potential to go all the way. I mean, the Akuma Katanas, yeah, they lost 2-0 to Grandview JV in the match to determine first versus second seed. But, you know, they're right up there. They had the same regular group stage record as Grandview JV. Grandview JV by no means. They're our first seed. They're, you know, the number one team coming on in here. But, you know, if you could take down the Akuma Katanas, you're certainly in the conversation for being able to potentially go all the way here. Oakland Esports coming in from the play-in stage have just skyrocketed themselves into the conversation for who could take the AVL here, and they've locked themselves top 4.
Yeah, I guess we could all kiss our prediction points goodbye to a degree, Gordo. I don't think anyone expected Oakland Esports to emerge victorious, far less in a dominating 3-1 here. Every single game that Oakland Esports won against Akuma Katanas was just frankly a complete stomp, a complete roll. It almost felt that the reality and the outcome of each of these games was decided by the 10-minute mark. Wizek, an incredible addition to the team. Sure, they come in as a substitute here, but they played like they've been alongside these guys for ages. Just great synergy across the map, and that duo with the mid lane has been shown to match up with the best. Doubtful and Klexo just not able to stand up in the vast majority of these games to the constant aggression that we see come through from Wizek and Keelan.
Yeah, absolutely there. A really huge performance there for the mid jungle duo of Wizek and Keelan, and Mr. Nefarious and Bello as well, holding it down in the bottom lane. These are a couple of guys that I've had my eyes on for All Pro as well, even before this series. This is not a post hoc I told you so.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, as well as it's John, really, all 3 of these players really stood out to me as players who do a lot with a little. They are all 3 of them. Particularly, it matters more for bot and top than it does for support. But all of them are among the lowest in gold percentage for their positions out of teams in the playoffs. But all of them turn that in to a lot more efficiency. They're also in the top for kill participation, for gold efficiency, the ability to turn that gold into damage. And I think those kind of things really showed through in out this series where, it wasn't necessarily always about the top lane. It wasn't always about the bottom lane, but they played their roles well. They maybe went down a little bit in matchups where they were supposed to, but they were able to come out later on and have a fantastic performance here. As looks like we are going to be joined by the coach here for the side of Oakland. As I'm trying to scroll through my Discord and get a name. Aaron? Is it okay if I call you Aaron?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, my man. Congrats to the team. I'm sure you guys are very excited. I got to open it up by asking about Wizek a little bit here. You guys have played most of the season with Mushin, bringing in Wizek the last couple of weeks. What's kind of led to that swap? And, how's the team gelled with their new player? It looks like it's been great.
Yeah, so last week it was a little bit of an adjustment period, but now that we've had a week of scrims under our belt and we got some time to practice as a 5 with the new lineup, it feels like nothing's changed, honestly. Mujin, our jungler, he's graduating after this year, so we moved up one of our substitutes from our B team to take over his spot. And big shout out to It's John, who had been playing in the top lane for us this season. He stepped in to sub for Mujin, who had been playing in top lane, but he got sick today. He got the food poisoning. So, Alex, I hope you feel better if you're out there listening.
Well, we're definitely going to be bringing them some good news at the very least, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, wow. It's incredible to hear that this pivot happened so fast, honestly. Like we were remarking before you just got on here, it really feels like this team has been playing together for such a long time now. And I got to say, shout out to Oakland University's talent pool, I guess. If these are the people you're pulling in as substitutes, they have been popping off here in the AVL for sure. One of the things that I wanted to ask about is just the decision making that went into some of these picks. We were remarking that these are things that we didn't really get to see a lot of in the regular season. The NASA support, the Alawi mid, for instance, in particular. And it felt like just in general, a lot of these players were kind of going off of some of their comfort champions in order to go for a little bit more coordinated play styles. Is that something that you guys prepared for specifically in preparation for quarterfinals and this elimination style bracket? Or is it just kind of a more natural progression evolution of the players?
It's a little bit of both. I would say that I think we heavily outdrafted him, even in the game that we lost. I think we were ahead in all 4 drafts. The Alawi pick and the Kane pick were in response to the rest of their comp. Alawi was just insane against Silas in the lane, as well as strong with what their team comp wants to do and running into us. and beginning to throw down a Lowy ult and basically just shutting down any kind of engage that they want to have go off. I felt the Kindred pick was really strange with the rest of their team, especially getting it on R5. It was a very odd pick in my opinion, but maybe just because they had some success on it in the previous game, they thought they could snowball that. But yeah, it's shout out to our players having very flexible champ pools and being willing to play slightly different things. Like set mid isn't that common anymore. Allowing mid certainly isn't that common. That kind of thing. Kane's not a super popular pick. Renata's popular in certain scenarios. All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, got some Rise top in there as well. Some fantastic looks coming on through here. Really happy to be able to see it. Actually, the Rise top was Akuma. My bad.
No worries.
Even then, though, you guys had a little bit of a rough regular season. You were able to qualify, of course, but 9-10 game record, 4-3 match record. Not coming in as one of these top seeds the way somebody like an Akuma Katanas was. But looking great here tonight. Do you guys feel like there's been a really substantial change in your gameplay over the course of the season? And what do you really attribute that to? Or do you think it's just been really kind of gradual, grinding it out and getting to get better together as a team over the course of the year so far?
Yeah, I think that it's been a lot of team improvement and myself and all the players kind of believing and listening to like me in the drafts and in games and in working on VOD review, all that kind of stuff, and just discussing the games over the course of the season. Everybody's improved. All 5 guys have improved exponentially from where we started at in the beginning of the year. Big shout out to them. They all work really hard, especially when we do have a scrim block that goes poorly or anything like that. Everybody's usually pretty level headed, or at least tries to get there pretty quickly so that we can have a productive discussion and work well together. I think that I think that all the guys would agree that we've definitely had a change in the way we've been drafting recently, and I think that is also something that has worked really well for us. And I think that going into semifinals and hopefully the finals, we have a good shot to win the whole thing. I think that we're a much improved team from where we were in the regular season, especially in the early weeks when we lost to Akuma. And I believe we're going to play next week. We'll be playing Glacial, so that's another loss we need to avenge. I think that we're a much improved team from where we were, and we're super excited.
Yeah, it's fantastic to hear the level of cohesion and communication that seems to be going on with Oakland Esports. It's just really invigorating to see a team with such good attitudes come through and show their stuff here, especially in these elimination rounds. You have just eliminated Akuma Katanas, as we just talked about, and you will in fact be facing off against Glacial Esports Yellow next week. Do you have anything to say to either of these two teams? Either congratulations or some well wishing for Akuma Katanas, or any words of fighting for next week when you face off against Glacial?
Yeah, shout out to the guys from Akuma. They definitely got us the first time around. I wasn't super happy with my drafting in the first time, so I had to step it up for this one. But good season to them. Top 8's certainly nothing to scoff at in a tournament like this with a lot of really good teams. And as far as Glacial goes, we're coming to avenge that loss and show everybody how much we've improved.
Awesome to hear. Gonna segue that into anybody else you want to shout on out before we close out the stream for the night. As want to give you the floor. You guys had your great win tonight, and here's your opportunity. Say whatever you want to everybody at home.
Yeah, shout out to all my players. Find them on social media. They're several of them are looking for teams for Proving Grounds for open qualifiers for the summer. They should definitely be picked up. Follow me on Twitter. It's just Kapiko Aaron, Kapiko Aaron. I'm also looking for analyst or coaching opportunities for Proving Grounds and open qualifiers in the summer. So if anybody's out there and looking for a coach, I think I could be a good asset to some people. And yeah, just shout out to the guys. They played really well tonight. I'm super happy with our performance. And shout out to AVL for always putting on a good tournament.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Aaron. Appreciate your time here. Congrats again on the win. Congrats on semifinals. Huge dub for the squad today. Thank you, everybody at home, for tuning on into tonight's matches. We'll be back throughout the rest of this week with more Aegis quarterfinals, and we'll be back next week for the AVL semifinals. Until then, thank you all for tuning on in. And from myself, Nyarko, and Malcolm on production, have yourselves a great night.